Right, I think we're live. I'll know in a minute, but hello everyone. I'm streaming with Thunderf00t, but screw the introductions. We're talking about Brexit. You're in, aren't you?
Yeah. So is there any sort of indication that we're actually green lighted here, or?
I'm pretty sure that we're greenlit. I think we are.
So we're all just going to look like complete dweebs, sort of wondering whether anyone's actually listening to any of this.
Yeah, as if we've never done this before or something. Right, I think.
So is there actually a view counter yet?
Yeah.
Does the view counter have a pulse?
47.
We'll wait till it's up into blood pressure type figures. Then
no, that's not. It's just updated. 578 now.
Yeah. Sorry.
578 now.
That's more like it. So yeah, Brexit. For what tangible gain? The way I see it is a very expensive way. You've seen Red Dwarf, yeah?
Love it.
Yeah, you know, when Rimmer's repainting everything from ocean grey to military grey.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What the hell's the point of that? It's just a very expensive way of changing things from something to exactly... Something is a difference without a distinction, and it's just going to piss everyone else in the world off, which is about what you see. You take a look everywhere else in the world. No one else wants this because it's a sort of more or less pointless change.
Well, I mean, there are a few reasons for me. I mean, the democracy one is my biggest bugbear with it. I really don't appreciate how it's set up at all, and I think it's been set up deliberately that way, not to make me not appreciate it, but to make sure that the sort of real executive power is outside of the hands of the demos, and I disagree with that. I mean, that's antithetical to democracy, isn't it?
I think you'll find the reason it was set up the way it was is because no one would actually give up any sovereignty for it. It's the same basic deal with the United Nations. The reason it's completely toothless is because the way it was set up is everyone had a veto that could kill anything, or everyone who actually was a real player. So the whole thing's completely toothless. It has almost... What enforcement powers does the EU have?
Well, it's not necessarily what it has, it's what it's going to have that bothers me. I mean, you saw the leak about the EU army, didn't you?
Yeah, and you take that seriously?
Yeah, I do, actually. I mean, I'm just going to get the notes I made, just to make sure I'm giving you the correct information. I don't want to be wrong on this. But yeah, basically, Juncker has been petitioning for this for a long time. And we find out that... what's the name of the woman? Federica Mogherini, the EU foreign policy chief. She's been working on it for 18 months, and they want a military headquarters and operational structures, and that's just the beginning. This is my problem with the whole thing. Everyone's like, well, it's not so bad, and it's like, yeah, it's not now so bad, but it's on the path to becoming a lot worse, and they're actively pushing along that path.
So could you not make the same argument for the United Nations? You take a look at their armed forces, they're not allowed to do anything.
Yeah, but I don't think that...
How on earth, right? The reason that the EU never does anything, which actually a good thing on the grand scheme of things, usually the way that I mean, in this sense, the libertarians are kind of right, that, you know, anything that governments do is piss inefficient. And so, generally, having a government not do anything, and having a government gridlocked, is essentially the status quo with the EU, because no one can ever agree to do anything. Yeah, I mean, what you're saying about the way that... I don't know if that's
true. I don't know if that's true, actually. There's a surprising amount of agreement on certain things. And, I mean, if you listen to people like Daniel Hannan, they'll tell you that the majority of MEPs and members of the council and commission...
They're democratically elected folk, you mean?
Well, hey, even the people who aren't democratically elected, they have... the general will that they would like a European army. And let me just get the... who's the chap? Former Defence Chief Lord Guthrie thinks that it's a vanity project, and that he thinks that it's really unnecessary and it's dangerous to our status in NATO. I mean, who's going to choose the EU over NATO?
I mean, to be honest, this is a relatively recent development.
It is. Yes.
I've not read anything about it.
Well,
the real problem you'll find with trying to create a European army is essentially that you got with the Battle of the Bulge, and how familiar we are with that, or how familiar everyone else is with that. But basically, the problem that you had is you had the English and the Americans, on paper, allies. They speak the same language, common culture, share a common enemy. This is probably as close an alliance as you're going to get. And they had Monty, who the Germans attacked and they sort of split the forces, which is kind of their plan. And Monty was left in the north, if I remember rightly. And I forget what the American commander at the time was, but he gave Monty the command of some of these soldiers. And it's one of those things, do you really trust a foreign commander? If you've got a tough attack to make, whose soldiers are you going to put in first?
Well,
yours or theirs, right? No. This is the intrinsic reason why actually this idea of a European army probably won't get even remotely off the ground. Whose soldiers do you put in first?
Well, the thing is,
what
language
are they going to speak?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to. We don't know because they've been keeping it a secret, and they were keeping it a secret deliberately.
You can see that there are a myriad problems with this. And let's step back to the actual main arguments.
Hang on. No, that in itself is not the be-all and end-all of everything. I mean, having multinational militaries is a common occurrence all throughout history. I mean, you know that. So you can have some phenomenally effective ones. So these are obstacles, but they're not unsurmountable. Absolutely. Hannibal and the Carthaginians, not one of his troops would have spoken Punic. Hang on. Do you have anything in the last century? Sure, like Napoleon. He had troops from all over Europe, and yet he commanded those. Oh, the last century, no. Sorry, the last 2 centuries.
The Romanians invading whatever.
But the point is, it's not an insurmountable obstacle, and it's not like these people can't have officers who are taught various languages, and it's not like you can't. Hell, they've probably got some sort of automatic translating devices these days. Technology has pushed us forward, and it really worries me because this is. And the thing is, this is the start. It could go in a really horrible direction. I mean, you know that. Come on. This could end up going in a weird direction.
This is just an argument that you shouldn't create powerful entities. And by that reasoning, what the hell's Google doing?
Well, no, I think you should create powerful entities, but I think they should be held accountable. And there's no real way we can hold the Commission accountable.
It's approved of by elected people from out of Europe. Each member state actually appoints a member to the council.
It does.
And on top of that, the whole thing's inefficiently designed, like most political systems, to be gridlocked.
Yeah, but
right? Because gridlocked systems can't achieve anything, and if you can't achieve anything, you have stability.
Yeah, but
which is one of the key things that you want out of government.
Man. There's a surprising amount of will to go in a certain direction in Europe.
Bullshit! It takes forever to do anything in Europe.
Well, they've got a surprising amount done, considering it takes forever to do anything. I mean, they are well on their way to pushing for a sovereign European state, and they're getting there. They're really close. You don't think so?
Sovereign European state.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they've got a unified currency without a unified fiscal policy.
Yeah.
This doesn't this isn't the master plan of the bloody Illuminati.
Hey, it's not a conspiracy. It's all out in the open. I'll go through some of it if you want. So, I mean, they've got the national anthem, they've got common borders, single currency, single market.
National anthem. What's the national anthem?
Ode to Joy by Beethoven.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Listen,
proven, I think.
Listen.
I mean, I can see now the European army marching against whoever. To Ode to Joy.
It sounds unrealistic tomorrow, but in 20 years' time...
It sounds unrealistic ever.
Yeah,
right?
But that's what they're going for, man. That's what they're going for. It doesn't matter if it sounds unrealistic. They've got a central bank, and now, right, the Benoit Coeur, some French name, member of the executive board of the European Central Bank, on the 21st of March 2016, put this proposal. He wants to strengthen economic and monetary union to increase the resilience against economic shocks. And he says, the time has come to initiate a new economic convergence policy, relaunching convergence efforts that each euro area country has agreed to prior to adopting the single currency. Skipping to the end of what he was saying, Basically, he says this: the management of these tools, including the European Stability Mechanism, could be entrusted to a Euro area treasury.
Well, didn't we just cover this a second ago, that actually unifying the currency before you unify a fiscal policy is just bloody stupid?
Yeah, but they are going to go that way. Everything they're doing is steps along that direction.
Because that would be sensible, right? I mean,
if you're creating a European superstate, yeah.
If you're creating a European superstate, I mean, the whole thing is gridlocked, and that's actually not a bad thing.
I don't think it is.
That brings stability.
I don't think
that's
it is
one of the
gridlocked.
key things that you actually want. If most people don't want the most prosperous country they can have, most people want a country that is stable till they're old and grey, and their little ones are actually popping out little babies of their own.
Yeah, but that's not what these people are going for.
Stability is a key thing that people want from government.
Yeah, but that's the point, though. That's entirely the problem. I mean, the government doesn't really care about what the people want, and I think they've set this up deliberately so the demos effectively doesn't really have any control over who makes the laws.
What do you think the European Union was set up for?
Well, how about we just talk about what the current president of the European Commission thinks about the concept of democracy? I mean, you know, he's the one who he goes on Twitter all the time. He's been saying it since at least 2011, if not before, that he wants a European army. And this is the guy who literally jokes that he doesn't mind if he gets called undemocratic when he says he wants policy made in secret.
Well, as long as it's as you admit that the whole thing is actually is democratic at its core, that there are elected people who have to ratify everything that the EU does.
Yes. The EU cannot simply create a law. The Commission can't create a law and then demand it's passed. The MEPs, the elected officials, can refuse things. That's correct. But they can never propose things. Do you not think that's a bit of a problem?
Well, I mean, seeing as one of the key arguments for leaving is a big bureaucratic body that no one understands. This is true of any bloody government.
Well,
I mean, Christ, do you even know how the intimate workings of the United Kingdom government work?
I'm fairly au fait with it, but I'm not an expert on it. But the thing is, I just don't see how we can justify having a body of people who we didn't directly elect, who are then the ones creating laws. You know, because I mean, this is all predicated on the idea that the political system is relatively stable like it is now, but we're not seeing that. We're seeing a great deal of change on the continent, with like places like Austria and Hungary nearly falling to, I say falling, but nearly electing extremely far right parties, and it's very, very close.
This is a criticism of democracy, yeah.
Well, kind of. Yeah. There are flaws with democracy.
So would it be better if people didn't have any? I mean, most political systems are actually set up such that people to even out the lumps, right? Because you want something that's stable. This is why most governments have at least two bodies, maybe three, that laws have to go through before anything can be done. You know, America's got the Senate. The House and the President. We've got the Queen and the House of Lords and the House of Commons, and the whole thing is designed to be bureaucratic and slow things down, and to divide power up, which is pretty much what you've got in the European Union.
The way the European Union is done is deliberately set up so that the people can never have control over the legislative body. They can only ever have control of the people who
what control do you actually want over the... The control to elect far-right politicians?
Well, ultimately, hey, look, that is, like you say, a consequence of democracy, and it's one we've got to bear if we want to be democratic. But I don't like having a body of people who write laws that I don't vote for. It means I can't vote against them. If they constantly churn out law after law that's complete horseshit. Okay, the MEPs might keep shooting them down, but how long does that go on
these
for?
Laws have, I mean, most of the laws that these people pump out are menial bureaucratic shit to do with trading standards.
Sure.
They have almost, I mean, if they were shitting on your freedom of speech, and England, it must be said, has one of the most back. Yeah, of all
yes,
countries
we
in
have
Europe.
really lost our
Yeah,
way on that issue. I
exactly
agree with you.
right. Europe
Absolutely.
isn't your big problem here. It's England that is your big problem. With
that might be true, but
speeches.
Europe is the current problem that we're discussing. So, I mean, I'm more than happy once we've been through the Brexit vote to then say, right.
Hierarchy, let's keep a priority of targets, right? Things that you care about are things like freedom of speech, the ability to change things, and if Europe isn't your big enemy there.
Yeah, it is, because this is where we are going. We're tangibly going into a European superstate. I mean, if Britain votes to remain, this is going to be seen as a mandate to carry on pushing towards ever closer integration.
Yeah, but then you say you've got tiers of integration, right? At the moment, it's mostly economic. In fact, actually, let's tackle some of the more common arguments.
Yeah, okay.
For Brexit. We'll come back to this. Yeah. And the most common arguments are economic is the first one, migrants is another one, and what else have we got?
Well, let's start with the economic one, because it is also tied to the migrant one. The main case against and I watched a video from a chap called Professor Michael Dugan from the University Law School, University of Liverpool Law School, and he's a professor who deals with European Constitution and British Constitution, and he put out a video that I watched today, and it was a very good case for Remain, unless you're not someone who has to work in the system, and then it's a very bad case for Remain, because effectively what he was saying is, well, it's going to be a lot of work. And I'm sat there thinking, well, I pay my taxes, so people like you can do the work. I don't care how much work it is. You know, I literally don't care how much work it is.
I mean, that's more or less exactly what the European Union is. You pay them to do the menial shit, the basically, you know, for the trading standards, such that, you know, your plugs get fuses and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but what this then becomes is an argument about taxation without representation. You know, because we pay them money, and I can't vote for them. I can only vote for their dog's body MEPs. They can't propose the laws. Therefore, if I wanted to get a law sorted, and millions of other people wanted to get a law put into place, say a law to say, I don't know, audit the EU and, you know, try and cut down some of the waste.
The taxation without representation.
Yeah, but we can't make them do that. The only way we're going to be doing that is under rioting in the streets or something. There's no democratic method for us to force the EU to reform.
How much tax do you pay to the European Union as a fraction of your total tax?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to calculate it.
Your typical Brit earns about £30,000, euros, dollars, doesn't really matter what. About 1/3 of that goes in tax. That's about £10,000, of which about 1/5, 2,000 or something, goes to the NHS. Guess how much goes to the European Union?
Probably not all that much, no.
About £100, about 1% of your tax goes to the European Union.
So some of my tax goes to the European Union.
Right, and of that 1%, most of it actually comes back in one form or another. In that you're paying them, and they're giving you the money back in terms of research grant or building opera houses or some silly shit like that. Right, most of the money is coming straight back. And you're really worried about your taxation of without representation on 1% of the actual tax that you pay.
I would be concerned about it on 0.1%. I would be concerned on any amount. The fact that this is the system.
Bullshit!
I totally would.
You should spend 99% of your time worrying about the tax. I mean, have you any idea of the silly things that the UK government spends its money on?
Well, I'm sure they spend their money on plenty of silly things. I don't care though. We're not talking about the UK government. No. Hang on. It doesn't matter what the UK government are doing. That's the thing. Even if the UK government is a terrible system, I can force them to do something about it.
Bullshit.
We can. We as the public can do that. We can't do that to the European Union. So it doesn't make any sense. And the European Union is on a path to get worse, not better.
It's a convoluted democratic system in England as it is in Europe, right? But I mean, let me just give you this one, because this one I found hilarious. This is back in the early days of Cameron. that we scrapped the aircraft carriers and ordered some new ones from France. These were going to be, the first thing that England's had that would probably class as a real carrier in a long time. And they were going to fly the F-35 Lightnings off them. But the thing is, the carriers were going to arrive about 10 years before the planes did. But they'd actually scrapped the Harriers. The only planes that could actually fly off these, they actually scrapped them. So they're going to have the carriers for about 10 years with no planes. And in that gap period, there will be no carrier ability for the United Kingdom, right? Well, they can fly helicopters off them, but what's the point of building
it's a pointless
fly
endeavor,
helicopters, right? I mean, and you worry about taxation without or did you vote for this?
What, did I vote for the EU?
No. Did you vote for this the way that they spend?
No, but let's imagine.
Do you have any way of changing it?
Yeah, okay. Let's imagine
taxation without representation. Do you have any way of changing it?
Yes, actually, I do. Of course, I do. Of course, I do. I could start a political party. It could be a hot button issue. Millions of people could vote for me. I could storm into the parliament with a majority with this new party, and I could say, right, we have a democratic mandate to introduce laws to reform, to do whatever it is we need to do, and we could make it happen. We can't do that with the EU.
And I could go and become the United Kingdom's member of the European Council. I could bring a fantastic argument. We could draft legislation in the European Council. It could be approved by the Parliament, and it would be changed. It's just as accountable.
No, but hang on. That isn't democratic, though. You would have to work your way. You would have to work your way through the avenues of power, and you would not get into the Commission based on the vote of the demos. That's the problem. I would get into Parliament on the vote of the demos with that mandate, and you could get to the European Parliament, and then you could say, "Hey, look, I'd really like it if you'd write some sort of law or just do any proposal so that we can push this through," and they could just say no.
I mean, look. Let's be real. What you're proposing is just bullshit.
Well, I'm not saying it's likely.
The idea that
I'm not saying it's going to happen.
That you do any of this, right? So in practice, de facto, you can't do it.
No, obviously not. Obviously, there would have to be a great deal of circumstances to make this aircraft carrier hot button issue happen. But what I'm saying is, look, in principle, these things can happen in our system. They can't happen in their system.
But they don't, and they can't.
Yeah, but
just because something could happen.
But 5 years ago, no one would have thought Donald Trump would have destroyed the Republican Party in America. Nobody would have thought. I mean, I doubt they would have even thought we would be having the vote on Brexit. Political systems change. The political circumstances change.
You know why we have the vote on Brexit, yeah?
Because people would like to leave the EU.
No.
Go on.
Because Cameron wanted to get re-elected. And for Cameron to get re-elected, he basically needed the support. It looked like Cameron, we were going to go for a hung parliament. So Cameron
there had to be a democratic will for it. I mean, there had to be a large number of people in the voting body who wanted that.
And the way that Cameron did that is he wanted to court people like UKIP and the people who wanted to leave Europe in his own party to sort of energise them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but
so he said, if you elect me, I will give you a referendum.
Yeah.
And the reckoning is that he didn't actually anticipate to win.
I don't think he did.
He didn't want a referendum.
No.
Right? In fact, what he wanted was what he expected was a hung parliament, and then he would have to make an alliance with someone like Nick Clegg. And then he could have said, "Well, I want a referendum. I'm going to fulfil my promise."
Yeah, you're going to fight for what you said you were going to fight for, and they'll say no.
And Nick Clegg vetoes it, and everyone wins. That's how that's politics, right?
That is Westminster as usual.
Anywhere, right? The problem was that he won a resounding victory.
He did.
Yeah, and so now he was committed, right? No one expected that.
Yeah.
And so he was actually committed now to this referendum. Now it turns out they didn't need to do a referendum like this at all. The last time they said Parliament is elected by the people. Whatever it does is therefore the will of the people. So when they actually signed the EEC to the EU, then they ratified that treaty. There wasn't a referendum. There wasn't a referendum.
No, there wasn't.
Because they didn't think they would actually. I mean, it was touch and go whether they could get it through the Parliament.
Yeah.
And yet, if they'd tried to get it through the people,
But
it would have
how
failed.
is this an
Right,
argument against Brexit, though?
Well, I mean, you were just saying how terribly undemocratic the EU is. This is your own country where the people you elect would actually do something where they don't think it's the will of the people.
Oh, I don't
might
really care
actually
what
be
their
the right thing
intents
for
are.
the country. It might be the right. I mean, honestly, I think they did the right thing for the country when you actually sort of scale up what this is going to cost England economically, right? Which is the bottom line. Whether you're in or out is a bit of a wash. Right, economically, you're still an island of 65 million people. You've still got the same intellectual ability on that island, probably with more or less the same ability to generate cash. Right, so the changing a nation is a sort of generational endeavor. You need to start off by educating people. You've got to decide out what sort of things you're going to make.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with you. But the thing is, what you've just said though is it sounds like a resounding endorsement of British-style democracy rather than EU-style democracy, quote unquote. Because you couldn't do that. No, you couldn't do that. Because Juncker or whoever becomes the president of the Commission doesn't have to lobby you to say what is your issue, what do you want me to run on, and what do I have to do when I get there. He gets appointed by other people.
The European Parliament spends now, what was it? It's about 1%. Right, the EU does virtually nothing, and it has, 50,000 employees, right?
Well, but that's because it's a supranational administrative body. It doesn't need to have millions of employees.
All it basically does is administer some menial crap, most of which no one even knows or cares about. The only time we ever find out about it is when they do stupid shit, like they insist you have little screws on the battery covers for kids' toys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally in agreement that they certainly overregulate, although I need to look into that more. But I mean, they do other things. I mean, if you look at the European Commission's own website, they were obviously concerned that UKIP was saying 75% of our laws are made in Brussels, which is obviously not true. But their own statistics are somewhere between 20 and 50%. I'm not happy with that. But potentially 50% of our laws, according to the unelected commission, have been written and put through by the commission.
When those laws are dealing with the ampage rating on wires, do you really care? I mean,
they're unnecessary.
There are laws. I mean, so this one, I don't know whether you saw the Jamie Oliver take-up on the Brexit movie.
I did.
Where they basically go through all these regulations.
Absolutely. Whoever made Brexit the movie really should have double-checked that.
Yeah, well, no. You must.
Yeah, but that's not the argument I'm making.
The argument went off that movie.
Yeah, but that's not the argument I'm making. This is the thing. The argument I'm making is that they can make laws and we can't actually do anything, right? The MEPs can block legislation. That they are the only people who can do anything. The national parliaments can formally express their reservations, but they can't do anything. There is a public consultancy system, so you could send them an email, basically.
Importantly of all, the EU has no regulatory teeth, right? I mean, this is one of the real problems.
As of yet. That's the problem.
Right. So
that's what they're pushing for. Constantly pushing for. I mean, that's the whole point.
You're looking at something that is maybe at best 10 years down the line or something.
That's fine.
And you're right.
And
they've got to get it through Parliament.
I am looking. I mean, you've got like this. There's a chap called Dr. Andrew Lillico, who's part of some economic think tank, and he's written an article on the Telegraph where he's literally saying, look, by 2020, everyone who UK never said never to begin with. They said not now. But by 2020, effectively, it will be forced upon us. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'm looking long down the road, maybe.
Forced upon us like buying aircraft carriers without planes.
Maybe. But I mean, the euro itself is something that people like Milton Friedman have objected to. They've said, look, it's not going to bring you political unity. In fact, it's going to bring you political disunity. And they're trying to force it all at once.
The real problem with Europe is they've tried to unify things. It's the same problem as the UN.
Yes,
right?
I know. They're trying to create a super state.
If you actually want a United Nations, it has to have some sort of enforcement power. The problem is that no one will give it any enforcement power, so it's essentially a toothless organisation.
No, they will. They absolutely will. Jean-Claude Juncker will end. I mean, literally, they
with
they
the
have
United Nations.
No, in the EU. Sorry, not the United Nations. But Juncker he's been asking for an army for God knows how many years, and they put a
And he's still
proposal
not got one.
That's because they kept the proposal secret to the day after the election. They are going to get this army. It's a popular idea in the European Parliament because they want to become a sovereign entity. That's what they want.
There are myriad, right? The whole thing with the army, that's just so riddled with problems.
It doesn't matter. The whole thing's riddled with problems.
It beggars belief.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, there are already military forces, but they want an actual institution with a headquarters. That's what's in this proposal, Phil.
Right. I mean, you might get some limited peacekeeping force, right? But the problem is once we're at the moment, if you like, Europe has become one zone. If you're in Europe, you can travel freely around it, and that's actually a really good thing. Do you agree with that? Free travel in Europe.
Well, let's talk about immigration then, because that's kind of that's kind of where we're going with that then. Because on paper, it sounds like a lovely idea. It's very nice, airy-fairy up in the sky. Sort of thought, oh, that would be lovely. No, it's
not. Most of Europe is rat-ass little countries, and
it's a bad idea then.
And it's a pain in the ass for them all to have. It's just an exercise in futility. Now, if you're worried about people spending, 1% of your money badly in the EU, I can tell you, you'd spend a damn sight more of that policing your borders, right? For them, if they just have to not police the borders, it's a sort of break-even point.
Yeah, but the thing is, right? You're looking at this from a very top-down perspective.
And not only that, it also a lot of the Brexit stuff, especially the Brexit movie, is essentially it's a sort of libertarian/capitalist wet dream.
Yeah, okay,
and I don't have too much trouble with that. But in that, freedom of movement is actually fantastic for free trade.
Yeah, but the thing is, freedom of movement is not good if you want things like socialised healthcare or a welfare state. You end up getting tourism for these things specifically. Also, with the migrant crisis, I mean, millions of these migrants are being given German passports and becoming German citizens. Yeah. So, I mean, it's good that
No. If we're going to go down that route, I can spend a long time bitching about Germany and how they're making a colossal mistake.
Exactly, they're making a colossal mistake, and we don't have control of our borders.
But why? Tell me why.
What do you mean, why are they making a colossal mistake?
Yes.
Because the political class of Germany wants to commit suicide. That's why.
No. Come on, that's just a quip.
Well, it is, but you tell me what you think it is, and I'll tell you whether I agree with it or not. Because
you go on to this one.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, honestly, I think there are a great deal of fucking psychological issues with the Germans. Frankly, the tremendous guilt after World War II that's been instilled in them since childhood is scary. I'm not surprised Merkel's throwing away her flag. I'm not surprised they literally put out... The German taxpayer pays for propaganda to tell them that they're a bad person for wanting to be a German. The Dalai Lama came out and said, look, you shouldn't let Germany become an Arab state. And that's the Dalai Lama speaking, and it's... So, you tell me why you think they do. You tell me why they think they do.
I get you where you would go with this. For me, it's just a practical economical argument. That if you're actually importing 1 million people into a country that's maybe 10 million people, give or take, it's about 1%, maybe 2%. Let's say 2%. 2% of the people they're importing. They are a spectrum of people. The young ones you don't worry about too much because young people tend to pick up whatever the local culture is.
Sure.
Right? Once you get into adulthood, you become much less plastic. You can't learn the language. You don't adopt the culture so well. And this is where it gets very difficult, right? Traditionally, you worry about people on your borders for stability. The problem is that now Europe's borders basically are all the way down to the Middle East.
Yeah, okay. But the thing is...
Right, okay, let me finish up.
Finish the thought.
Is that you've now got a couple of percent of your population who are probably not going to integrate well and are essentially going to be a burden on your state. Merkel said after a while that she hoped that when Syria was stable, they'd all go back home, which is probably true enough. Most of these people, if Syria was stable, no, absolutely.
Well, okay, there's just one. Hang on. There's just one thing to remember with that, and that's only 19% of the migrants came from Syria.
Okay, whatever.
So, honestly, 81% of them are economic migrants. That's why there are so many young men there. Honestly, it's kind of like they're off on an adventure to get some free money. You know, most of them are not actually Syrian refugees, and so it's just
but they'll all come from destabilized countries in the Middle East.
Morocco isn't destabilized. You know, thousands of them are coming from like places like Morocco or and Turkey itself. You know, these are not necessarily destable countries, and Turkey is using the migrant crisis to strong arm the EU to get fast track visas and passports and whatnot. And so it's just like.
But when you say strong arm, there are actually legitimate reasons there that if your actual border is going to go all the way down to Turkey, that basically you need to give money to the people on the borders to police it.
Yeah, but instead we're giving money to Turkey to simply
they're the people on the
pledge. Well, no. You don't get people outside your borders to police your borders. We're giving them money so they don't send millions more migrants. No, they have millions in camps along the border.
On it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is the thing. We could be sending money to Greece to make sure that they intercept migrant boats and to send people back if they come across. But instead, we're sending money to Turkey so they don't send it in the first place. Basically, they are extorting us with the threat of millions of more migrants.
I don't think it's that there are elements of practicality.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why
no one is quite.
They're doing it because it's practical to do it.
Sits there and says, "I wonder how we can use this to extort the EU."
Oh, I think Drogan probably is.
A lot of this is they have to deal with this shit anyway.
Well, no, Turkey wants into the EU, and I think Drogan is using this deliberately as a bargaining chip. I mean, he would be a fool not to.
What politician wouldn't?
Exactly, he would be a fool not to.
Right,
but,
so, I mean,
but that means that we need to.
This is normal democratic politics.
Well, it's just normal power politics, and we need to make sure that we act appropriately. And removing the possibility of him threatening us with millions of migrants is the best thing for us to do in that situation, so we can stop giving him free money. And we can protect ourselves from the consequences of doing that, instead of allowing us to be kind of jujitsued into a hold where he's just going to get money off us for nothing. You know, to
an extent, games are played for self-interest.
Yeah, I know, but we should play for our self-interest.
I don't think it's anywhere near as binary as you would have it there. I think that basically he is on the border. He has to deal with this shit.
Sure.
Right? It's not that he's sort of letting these people across because it's a good bargaining chip for him.
Oh, absolutely he is. Absolutely.
So you think that he has actually engineered the instability in the Middle East?
No, I didn't say he'd engineered the instability. I'm saying he's taking advantage of it. Drogan's son was caught funding ISIS, so I don't know what's going on, but I know that he's definitely taking advantage of this because, like you said, he would be a fool not to. You know, you work in your own interest, and we need to start doing that.
I mean, this is actually another. The whole thing with having all these migrants flow across is obviously a problem. It's also actually historically for stability, you worry about the stability of your neighbours. If you want a peaceful country, you worry about the stability of your neighbours, right? Now,
that's certainly a concern.
Now, how would you actually implement that?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'd be more than happy to increase border controls and things like that. But the problem with
that's building a wall. That's not stabilising the countries on your borders. This has always been a traditional thing.
Sometimes you can't stabilise these countries. I mean, Turkey is facing massive amounts of Islamists who are literally. I mean, it's supposed to be a secular nation. I mean, you saw the Radiohead concert thing, where Islamists were literally breaking up groups of people who were apparently just having a good time. And these are just one of many groups of young nationalist Islamist groups that are starting to take hold in Turkey, and I don't know why. I mean, it seems to be a zeitgeist across the Muslim world.
Turkey has always been the meeting of the Christians in Europe and the Islamists from the Middle East. Has always been a turbulent area.
Yeah, I'm not saying it hasn't. But what I mean is the real problem with the migrant thing and the way that the EU's borders work, right, is that Britain isn't in the Schengen zone. So we could turn around and say, right, people outside the EU can't come in. But the problem is you've got people like Germany who are saying, well, actually, we've given them all European citizenship, so now they can come in. And so that just completely screws us. This is my problem with mass immigration.
So it sounds kind of like what you're saying is we need a more unified actual policy here with some teeth.
Yeah, but they're not going to do it. Germany are going to keep giving these people citizenship. They're going to keep bringing them in because the government, for some reason, wants Germany to commit suicide. Now,
so you actually want to put up barriers between England and people with EU passports?
Well, I mean, I think that we do, in a way. I mean, you have to show your passport to go through. You have to prove who you are, and so there's no reason
but
we can't.
EU passport. If someone has an EU passport, you have to let them in.
Yes, because we're part of the EU. But I'm not suggesting. I mean, we're not in the Schengen zone, so we don't have to let outside people in. But not only that, the whole thing. Right, look.
So I mean, the whole thing that you've just described is how are you going to stop the people who Germany has given passports to from coming into the EU?
We leave the
into
EU,
the UK,
so they have to apply to come into the country the same anyone else in the world does.
So you would actually require visas for anyone coming from Europe to the UK.
Yes, just like everyone else on Earth.
And you don't think, and how would you actually distinguish between the people you want to keep out and the people you want to let in?
Well, we have a point system at the moment, and the Leave campaign have been floating the idea of an Australian-style system. How are you going to distinguish between a German and a German on a point system? Right? You want to stop some of the Germans who are from Syria from coming in, but let Germans who are scientists who are coming to work at your institute through. How are you going to distinguish? It's not about them being Syrians. It's about them being unskilled. But yeah, we do that already. Australia does a fine job of it as well. You just have to provide credentials. You have to say, look, I have a job I'm going to. I have qualifications, experience. I am a valuable asset to your country. Therefore, you want me to come in. And so, yeah, people like scientists, engineers, they're going to get in no problem. But mass immigration, when it's unskilled labour, is a problem. There's no good that comes of it unless you've just had a massive loss of manpower for whatever reason.
Let's see. In America, you can go there for 3 months. You don't have to do anything. You can go on with these ESTA, whatever's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you have something like that in the UK?
I don't know. Maybe it's not up to me to decide. But
I mean, basically, what you want to build Fortress UK?
No. I just want a sensible border policy because I don't. The thing is, you seem to be... Hang on.
Actually makes 99% of the people go through a load of bureaucratic shit, have to prove all sorts of stuff. Yeah. You have to pay for the administration to do this. Yeah. For every person who comes into the country, you have to pay for the administration to go and check all of their stuff.
That's fine.
Right?
That's fine. The thing is, right, you're coming... No, not at all.
Who would actually set up a business in a country like that when you can just as easily set one up in Europe?
Well, you may have one already in Europe.
What?
International companies have businesses in lots of companies. So if you already have businesses in Europe, why wouldn't you want to set up in a new market you don't have a foothold?
What's the incentive going to England, though? There is none. Or the
Making
UK.
Money. It's the fifth biggest economy on Earth. It's got 65 million customers.
It's 1/10 the size of the EU.
So? We're the only we're the people in the EU who are growing the most. Italy has a negative growth rate. Germany's only got 1.6%. These countries are not doing as well as you think. I mean, what's Greece's youth unemployment?
You're talking about the difference between 2 and 3% growth in a market where this is Europe and this is the UK.
Yeah, but once you've got your market in Europe, you're going to be like, well, that's still millions of people who we could be selling to. But the thing is, right, let me finish this point about immigration.
It's millions of people, and it's a pain in the arse to deal with.
That's fine. I'm okay with it being a pain in the arse. You know, I pay these people to work, and they do their jobs, and if it's a pain in the arse to them, too damn bad. But the thing with immigration, right, and this, a lot of people come at this from a very much top-down perspective, but my family's working class, and so I always look at this very much from the bottom-up perspective. Mass immigration is bad for poor people. There is no argument against that. You know, it just is. It's the market logic of supply and demand. If you have a few... I mean, we get, what is it, 300,000 extra people a year? Even though the Conservatives were supposed to be cutting down the number of immigrants. And this is why...
Don't I remember it right that England exports more people to Europe?
No, that's not true. We're in a deficit with that.
Yeah, but it's a close run thing. There were was it 2 million in Spain alone?
Yeah, no, almost 2 million. But it's about 3 million from the continent that would have to be dealt with, and then 2 million out there. So we're still a million up, you know.
Actually, all right, so
but the thing is, this doesn't change the fact that that's just people from Europe. You know, that doesn't change the fact that any of these other unskilled labourers who come over and they are just direct competition for people who already have trouble getting jobs. We've only got 700,000 free jobs every month in this country. We've got 1.3 million unemployed.
Of the free market that...
Yeah, I know, but there's no need to create unnecessary problems for poor people.
Blind, if you're a supporter of the free market, that stuff all sorts itself out.
Well, it doesn't. It ends up with ghettoization. You know, it ends up with massive amounts of poor people who have real trouble finding money, and that just becomes a burden on the state. You know, then they're not taxpayers; they're just draining.
So, yeah.
So it's one of those things, and not only that, but it depresses wages anyway. You know, you don't want hundreds of thousands of people coming every year who are low skilled.
The argument against actually letting poor people in is economic. It'll be an economic burden.
Absolutely.
But you have a problem with that being an economic burden, but don't have a problem with putting up all border controls, which will also be an economic burden.
No, because that's an economic burden to society, whereas immigration is an economic burden to poor people, the people who are already having problems.
People on the welfare state are an economic burden on the state.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get people.
Just like putting up border controls.
But this is the point. Mass immigration creates more people dependent on welfare, whereas less mass immigration means that there's more jobs, wages go up, and so what's the...
Actually, I think you find that when you actually get lots of poor people, people stop immigrating. This is one of the reasons why immigration from America to Mexico has slowed right down.
They stop immigrating because the wages go down.
Sorry?
They stop immigrating because the wages go down. It's no longer so...
No.
It's no longer so attractive to go there because it's full of poor people.
Exactly. Right, so there's two things. First of all, Mexico's gotten richer. Secondly, America's... there just aren't the incentives to go to America anymore. And given that, people would rather live in their own culture.
Yeah, but that's generally the way America has millions and millions and millions of totally impoverished people. So this is the thing. This is entirely my point. Mass immigration is not good for poor people. It just creates more poor people. And the last thing any state wants is more poor people. What we should be doing, honestly, I think it would probably be in Europe's best interest to devolve itself into smaller categories, into smaller, more flexible
if you were arguing against something like the military-industrial complex...
No, I'm not. No, I'm arguing for entrepreneurship. Because this is the thing. That it's becoming less and less likely that people will start a successful business. And that's a bad thing. You know, you want people to be able to have some sort of self-determination over their own financial destiny. And a good way to do that is to encourage them to start businesses. But that becomes more and more difficult in the EU. The EU is a haven, a thrilling place for places like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, who are all pro-Remain, because it makes money for them.
Everyone is pro-Remain. Anyone with a financial interest is pro-Remain for more or less the exact reasons that you've just laid out. That if you want to go for the Brexit, like you say, you basically want to build walls up all around Europe that will actually limit the movement of people. And what do you think the European response to you putting up all of these barriers around England is going to be? They're probably going to reciprocate.
I'm not suggesting we build a wall because we already have a moat.
You understand that most people, if you put up barriers like that, they're going to be reciprocated.
Yes, and that's fine.
So
I mean, I would be very happy.
You will need a visa to go to Europe.
That's fine. I'll get a visa to go to Europe.
Okay.
I mean, I would be more than happy if they were like, we're going to have the Australian-style policy.
And if they sort of turn you down for not filling in the form, or because
then
you're not
I'll
rich enough or something, you don't have any problem with that.
Yeah,
you don't have
then
any
I will change myself
with Europe
to
saying
fit their
we're not
criteria.
allowing anyone who is poor to come into Europe.
Well, I mean, obviously we're not talking about holidays. We're talking about migration, aren't we? Because I mean,
you don't. It's a visa. I mean,
but they're not. Yeah, but,
I mean, if you're going to go for the American system, if you're going to go for the American system where you can go for 3 months holiday, well, I mean that's just bypassed your entire fortress UK.
No, but I don't want a fortress. I just want a sensible immigration
policy.
No, I don't.
You want to put up airtight barriers that basically mean you. Well, if they're going to be leaky barriers, you've got those already.
Look, no, we don't have any barriers at the moment.
Yes,
We've got very flimsy barriers that can be easily bypassed by simply going to Germany first. But not only that, and that's assuming you don't come from a poor Eastern European country in the first place, right? But there is nothing wrong with saying that, look, people who want to migrate permanently to your country have to fit a certain standard or a certain mold that is beneficial for your country. If they are low-skilled economic tourists, there's no need to have them. They don't do any good for your country. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not saying that people from Romania or Pakistan or something can't holiday here, but I don't think they should be allowed to just move here just on the virtue they exist somewhere else on Earth. That's not fortress. That's just sensible. That's just taking care of your national interests.
So you would let poor people in if they want to come on holiday.
Sure, of course, but anyone could come on
And
holiday.
well, what's to stop them from just staying once they're in?
Well, we have laws against illegal aliens, so...
Yeah, and how well has that...
Right, well, don't get me wrong, right? Whenever...
Country,
in any system, there will be a certain amount of failure, and I am willing to tolerate the failure. I'm willing to tolerate whatever percentage of these tourists come in.
Now we're going down to how much is it going to cost you to get one illegal alien out of the country?
It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter. You know,
well,
because
with financial insight like that.
No. The point is, it's gonna look right. It doesn't really matter if it's £10, £50, or £100, because
I
at the
think
end
you'll
of the
be looking
day,
at more like 10,000.
I don't think it's going to cost £10,000 for each person in Britain to get rid of an illegal alien.
Yes, it will. You've got to find them.
I don't think that's
how long do you think it'll take to find someone, do all the paperwork to work out that they're actually... First of all, you've got to find them. Then you've got to catch them. Then you've got to work out they're illegal aliens. Then you've got to deport them.
Yeah.
I would be stunned if you can do it for £10,000 per person.
Yeah, per illegal alien, maybe. But not per citizen in the country. I mean, okay, £10,000, you know, spread around 65 million people, it's not that much. And the thing is, you get less illegal aliens if you have more stringent policies. I mean, it's more difficult to be an illegal alien in any country than anywhere else. What are you going to do? Get a national insurance number? You know, where the hell are you going to work? You know,
works out okay in America. You can work as an illegal alien for years.
Exactly, but it's different in America, that's the thing. And so, you know, it's a lot more different. So it's like, I don't really see a good argument for mass immigration at all. In fact, the only good argument for it is if you are part of the sort of economic elite.
The argument for the immigration is largely that it economically benefits everyone. That if there's actually supply,
it doesn't benefit poor people.
Right,
and it's not going to end up benefiting the middle class either.
The free market sorts that. If there are too many poor people, there aren't going to be more poor people migrating to that area.
Okay, right? But we can always just prevent loads of poor people from accruing in an area with
£10,000 a head.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine because like this is all spread across the entire population of the country. So the poor people who their wages go up, I'm sure they will be prepared to pay more tax to keep their wages going up. I'm sure they will.
So hang on, what did you say? There was 300,000 a year coming in at the moment.
Yeah, 300,000. Yeah, but they're not illegal. They're legal.
Okay, so how many of those would you want to evict?
I don't want to evict anyone. I don't want to evict anyone. Obviously, I just think we should drastically cut down the amount of unskilled immigration into the country. I mean, if 300,000 doctors wanted to come into the country, I probably wouldn't object. I mean, okay, you know, maybe that's too many, but you know what I mean. If it was skilled labour that the country can use, then fine. But it's not. A lot of it's packing in warehouses and things like this.
The whole point of you know, the free movement is it's good for the free market, right? You've removed the barriers. People can move around. It facilitates business. It facilitates things like research and communication.
Yeah, but that's for a section of the population.
And
it's
you're actually
it doesn't benefit everyone.
All of that.
No, it doesn't benefit everyone. It benefits a certain section of the population. Generally, the section of the population that employs people. The people who are employed are affected negatively by this. It's this goddamn myth that, oh, immigration is just good for everyone. No, it's fucking not, and it's terrible for our services. The NHS is totally overloaded. It costs us a fortune on welfare. And housing benefits. It's not sustainable.
So we come back to, you know, the NHS. You spend about 2,000. Average UK citizen spends about £2,000 a year on the NHS, and you're worried about the £100 on Europe. I'm not, you're the one who wants to build basically all these. You want to.
I don't want to build anything. I just want to have a sensible immigration policy. I mean, we can keep the checkpoints we have. You know, I mean, I recently went through them. I had to show my passport. You know, I'm happy to keep all the infrastructure we have.
None of that will actually stop the illegal immigration that you're worried about.
Yeah, but illegal immigration is a tiny amount.
It's not even illegal immigration. It's
exactly.
You basically want everyone to get a visa to come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
inconvenient. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it. 55. Right? Do you know how many people go through Heathrow Airport alone each year?
Oh, millions, without a doubt.
About 55 million. It's about equivalent to...
How does Australia or how does America cope?
Well, for countries like us, there are very relaxed visa requirements.
And maybe we could have relaxed visa requirements for Europe.
In which, well, that's what we've got. It's called Schengen. It's free movement of citizens.
I don't think that we should have so much free movement. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying very low. I mean, maybe there could be moderate visa requirements, you know? But this is the thing. There's no argument against it from an economic point of view if you care about the poor people in your country. If you only care about the business-owning class, the bourgeois class, then sure, mass immigration is fantastic and it's going to make them a lot of money. But most people, or a large number of people who want to leave and who are concerned about immigration, are concerned about that. And that's not even talking about the social damage it's doing, you know. I mean, we are literally seeing colonies of Muslim immigrants across the UK, where there are people in them who don't even have very much contact with British people. 22% of Muslim women in Britain don't speak English, you know. And it's like, holy shit, that's literally like a million. So is that a
problem with immigration or with Islam?
Well, both, to be honest.
But
immigration on the numbers alone. There doesn't need to be any.
I mean, basically, the way you were describing immigration is you don't mind the rich people coming, but you don't want the poor people come.
It doesn't necessarily have to be rich. It just has to be educated and useful.
Skilled, but that's de facto the same thing. Someone else paid for their education. Right. Essentially, what you're doing is poaching skilled workers from other countries.
Yeah.
Right. You don't find there's an ethical problem with that.
Why would I? Why is that unethical? I'm not kidnapping them. We're saying that if they want to move to this country and become British and have a life here, and they have a set of skills that is beneficial for our country, they can come. They don't have to. They can stay in their own country.
But you don't want poor people.
We have plenty of poor people. We've got too many poor people.
So
yes, I want to discriminate against people on the basis of their skills
and their money.
Well, that's generally the consequence of having skills, isn't it?
Yeah. I think you would find that probably I don't know the detail. I think you'll find that's probably constantly violates some sort of laws, discriminatory laws in England.
Then Australia. Yeah, then we need to change that law then, because I mean we can literally just adopt an Australia-style border system. There's nothing.
No, you put up a big sign saying no poor people.
That's what a normal border system would be. I mean, that's what it always was. I mean, you don't just take in hundreds of thousands of poor people into your country. It's stupid. It doesn't benefit you in any way unless you're like fucking Scrooge or something, and then it does. But for the average British citizen, there is no benefit to bringing these people in. And like I said, there are also problems with where they're coming from, the cultures they're coming from, the cultures they're bringing with them. I mean, we export hundreds of jihadists.
If you were talking about the culture, then you maybe got a point. But I mean, you would know do you know what ran the British textile industry post World War II?
Oh,
immigrants from India and Pakistan.
Yeah, oh, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. That's because
more traditionally British than a curry.
Yeah, but look, that's not something we can't have with a sensible immigration policy. And after World War II, after hundreds of, what was that, like 900,000 British people died, and you know, in Germany we've had millions dead. Yeah, immigration makes sense because you have a dearth of manual labourers. But now we don't. We've got fucking too many. We've got way too many. We've got twice as many unemployed people as we do jobs.
You need to open up the borders and let them go somewhere where there's work.
Yeah, but the borders are open. They can leave whenever they want. They don't. Right.
So open borders are a good thing now?
No, I didn't say that necessarily they're a good thing. I don't think they're a good thing, but the border isn't closed to stop them going. What country stops people from leaving? North Korea, probably. You know, I doubt even China stops people from leaving.
Yeah, you expect to stop poor people coming from Europe, but don't expect Europe to stop poor people going there.
Oh, I don't know. Absolutely, if they want. If they want to say that we're not going to accept people of a lower skill set or something like that, then sure.
The usual way these things work is reciprocation.
Yeah, and they can reciprocally say, okay, don't send us your poor football hooligans. And I'll say, well, okay.
I doubt they would anyway. Very few of them have the language skills to cope with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Although you might remember this, Els Wiedersehen, Pet.
Yeah, in the 80s there were a great deal of British workers who went over to Germany and work. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is the thing. We're not in the same position as we were in the 1980s, though. This is the thing. We're in a much more different and difficult position. And again, this is just the immigration.
You were just saying how wonderful England was doing. You know, biggest
we are
actually,
doing better than Europe.
It's okay. I mean, most of Europe is
it's not
actually
fantastic.
not far. Most of Europe is much of a wash. Once you look at the poor countries around the rim, it's not so good. You factor it all in together, but you take a look at Germany. Germany is very comparable to England in terms of economy.
It's doing pretty well. It's not doing as well as we are, really. I mean, Germany is like, Germany is not growing nearly as fast as we are. Not nearly as fast. 1.6%. We're on 2.9%. I checked it the other day.
Let's check that out.
I'll send you a link. I literally did a video on this the other day. Because...
Yeah, I think I checked those numbers and economic growth.
Yeah.
Growth, UK, EU, there we go. And oh, come on, there'll be a wiki. There we go. Economic growth in the EU. This is the other thing. Are you talking 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or something?
I think it was just last year's growth I was talking about.
Right. So Germany is at 4.6 for the. Hang on. Oh no, that's unemployed. What are we at for GDP?
I mean, and that's another thing as well. The unemployment across Europe is staggering, absolutely staggering.
I wouldn't go for staggering.
That is just going to encourage poor people from Europe to come to Britain.
So, what do you think it is in the United Kingdom?
The stats I saw the other day were 2.9%.
For United Kingdom on unemployment.
Oh no, growth. Sorry.
UK
it's 1.3 million. So whatever that is in population.
It says here 5.3%, which is actually higher than Germany.
Yeah. Possibly.
France is terrible, but then again.
So then we don't need to take any migrants from Germany.
France has myriad of problems, right? So here we go. 10-year growths for the European Union. Germany is at 15, and the United Kingdom is at 16.
There we go.
1% out of 50.
Yeah, but the United Kingdom is speeding up and Germany's slowing down. Our trade deficit has gone down, whereas Germany's economy is slowing.
Yeah, but now you're talking about long term. I mean,
the whole thing. That's the point, though, isn't it? This is a historic event.
And if you're looking at this, it's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So
yeah, I agree with you. It's probably not that much in it.
Guess who's got a growth rate of 50% for the last?
Probably 10 North Korea or something.
Poland.
There we go. But
this was another thing that really pissed me off about the Brexit movie. Is they say how wonderful the growth was in Europe and how stagnant it was in the UK, and it's all bollocks. If you've got a country that's bombed to shit, of course it can grow like crazy because it's growing from nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Whereas if you've got a fully developed economy,
of course they started at an incredibly low position, so of course they're going to grow if you put things into. I'm not here to defend Brexit, the movie.
No.
I have my own arguments for all of this. But yeah, so basically mass immigration
you would agree that Brexit was mostly propagandist crap?
I don't know, to be honest. I didn't...
You've said you've watched it and you know the details.
I watched it, and on some points I thought, okay, maybe they've got a point. On other points I was like, it's not really something I'd highlight.
All that thing about, all we have to do is leave the EU and we can have growth.
I don't... That's the thing. I don't want to present a utopian idea. And
having said that, that's almost what you did. I watched one of your videos on this, and you said that we send. You actually had the number in it that we send £100 to the EU, and if we left, you thought we would be £1,000 richer.
Well, no, I don't think that. That's just what the source I was quoting.
Come on, I don't care where that comes from. You've got to know.
The average person will have more money. The average person will have more money. They absolutely will.
So you think that every pound that you don't send to Europe, you're going to get £10 richer?
No, I don't think it's going to be
that's
what
your numbers were.
No,
you said,
I'll have to find it.
We send £100 to Europe, and if we leave, we'll be £1,000 richer.
Okay, let's assume those numbers are vastly inflated then, right?
Vastly inflated.
Let's assume they are. Let's assume they are, right?
A 10% difference, I would maybe say, maybe.
Let's assume that there is no difference.
1,000% better off. for leaving the
Okay,
EU.
but let's assume those numbers are wrong then, right? But there is no doubt that the
Let's
average...
assume they're wrong. I mean, how could you believe them?
Well, I don't know. This is the thing. I'm just going off what is shown. I mean, we're certainly not going to be £4,200 worse off,
Yeah,
are we?
right. Well, actually...
No, we know we're not. We know we're not.
Right, so,
Even The Guardian
I mean,
were debunking that.
This is the thing. It's most likely to be a wash for the simple reason that you're still the same country that you were, yada, yada, yada. You're off the coast. It does. If you actually put up barriers, they'll be reciprocated. It's likely that you won't get any more favourable treatment than you've got at the moment, because everyone, if you want to export, that you've got to accept the imports.
Yeah, but I mean, people in the Leave campaign have literally been saying that wages will go up and prices for food will go down. So I mean, how is that not useful for the average British person?
So the usual argument, I mean...
And that's coming from the Remain camp.
This is actually, this is not far off the reason for the Common Agricultural Policy, which is one of the if I were to actually write the damning sermon on the EU, that would be close to the core.
Yeah, I was going to say, we you know, the agricultural policy, the fishing policy, they're not things that benefit us, you know.
Well, actually, it depends what your goals are. If you want stability in the food supply, they're good. If you want so that's the usual thing. If you want to security, insurance, and the such like, you've got to pay more.
Yeah, but I'm not looking for security. I mean, the problem.
Yes, you are. I mean, yeah, but this is one of the real problems: is that you assume, because you've never actually seen instability anywhere near your borders, that it's not going to come.
Not at all. I grew up with... Hang on. Right, I grew up with my dad telling me about how bad it was when the labour unions had control of the country. You know, the 3-day week, rubbish piling up in the streets, electricity going off. That is a great deal of instability, and that is something I worry about. You know,
stability in the food supply, right? This is the thing.
But there's not going to be instability in the food supply. We're not going to suddenly find ourselves with food shortages.
And you were the one. You were the one who was speculating earlier about you don't know how Europe's going to go when it gets its army, right? If you want to plan.
Okay, that's a great argument to leave, because if we leave, Europe might invade us.
No. You misunderstand. Right. Your problem with Europe and getting an army is that 50 years down the line or something, it's going to actually be able to impose some sort of
I don't know what will happen.
Some shit like that, right? You're worried about long-term, low probability events, right? The thing is that of the long-term, low probability events that you,
I don't know how low probability that is.
If war comes to Europe again. Well, actually, stability. The common agricultural policy would be useless then.
Yeah, it's not going to be the reason for it, is it?
But I mean, yeah, that was the actual core of it. Is that there had actually been famines in Europe post World War II, which is sort of something you would expect. That the infrastructure being destroyed.
Yeah, but that's a very specific set of circumstances caused by a devastating war. I mean, you
can see the origins of it are not we want to create some federal superstate or something.
But that's the reason.
This is actually securing the food supply. If you've known hunger, it's something that you might want to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. But we're not in that position, and we're not going to be in that position. I think that's an who is going to invade Europe? I mean, who would do it?
Well, yeah, but this is we have instability on the borders, but they're a long way away. And if you're in Eastern Europe, Ukraine's not that far off.
What, from being invaded or invaded?
What do you mean? There's already been they've been shooting in it.
Yeah, I know. Donetsk, I know.
Ukraine.
But what I mean
if anything, it demonstrated how inept the Russian war machines become. But
yes, that's what I was going to say. I'm not scared of Russia. Apparently, they had a real trouble just in Georgia. So I'm not. No one should be scared of Russia. But Putin's such an amazing diplomat
like saying
in that way.
Scared of a European army. I mean, you're worried about spectres that are so far off.
No, I'm not necessarily. I'm not necessarily scared of a European army. What I'm saying is, there's no point creating the potential for something that could be abused. especially if you don't need it. We don't need a European army. No one's going to invade. Everyone's in NATO. Germany and France aren't going to go to war with each other or anything like that. This is an antiquated idea.
So
it's
actually, no,
ridiculous.
what you were saying, I mean, so there's all this sort of speculation that UK leaving will lead to a cascade unraveling of the European Union. Which is, I mean, so this is, you know, there's all these cartoons of the UK leaving a sinking ship.
I think that's the fear from the Remain camp, most of all, isn't it? That the European project will collapse.
But if the European project collapses, it takes the United Kingdom with it.
What do you mean? Takes it with it?
Because half of our exports go to the European Union.
Wow.
If the European Union falls apart, we go with it. Our financial
but they go
ties
to they don't go to
are
Brussels. They go to the countries within the European Union.
Right, and so if their economies collapse, what happens next?
Why
and
would
this
they?
is the
But
thing.
their economies aren't going to collapse just by leaving Europe. It's not. I mean, there will be downturns, absolutely, and don't get me wrong, that's not good for many of the countries that are already on a downturn.
And what do downturns bring? Instability.
Yes. But the thing is, what? So, are you suggesting that at some point 2 NATO members in Europe are going to go to war?
If you had actually actually no, Europe's maybe a bad example, but people don't see wars coming.
That's true. They don't, and people don't see oligarchic tyrannies coming either. And it's amazing, given how many of them the continent has produced to date. And so it's one of those things where, okay, do we have an unaccountable body that has an army of its own? I mean, it's literally like the Marian reforms, and we know how that goes.
If anything,
it's not a good idea.
I worry the EU is too inefficient and bureaucratic to actually do anything. If anything, the wonderful thing about the EU is it can't achieve anything, which is wonderful if you want stability.
Yeah, but it does achieve
indeed,
things. It shuffles a lot of money around very regularly.
No, it doesn't shuffle that much money around. I mean, come on, it's billions, but we've already established that it's 1% of the tax you pay, and of that, most of it comes straight back to the country. These are what you would normally call operationally insignificant factors of amounts of money, and if you compare them to the inefficiencies of government in general.
Yes, but we were talking about statistically insignificant chances of 2 NATO members in Europe going to war. That's not going to happen. So if the entire EU unraveled and all of these countries became independent nations,
actually,
again,
no. I mean,
they're still not going to go.
Let's just. Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to know what would actually happen.
Yeah, but it's not going to be Poland invading Germany or vice versa.
What are they going to do for currency? What are they going to do for?
Well, if you listen to Mervyn King from the...
All of a sudden, nothing... Right, where there was stability, there is instability.
Well, no, there is, but instability doesn't necessarily mean negativity. I mean, the ex-governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, he's recently written a book, a few months ago, he wrote a book, saying that the reason that Europe is having so many problems is that it's built in by design with the euro, and what should have happened with Greece is they should have returned to the drachma, devalued their currency, and encouraged foreign investment. And that is something that could be done.
Again, the real problem there was unification of the currency without union of the fiscal policy.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Which is
why but that's why people in Europe say we need more Europe.
And the thing is, well, actually, that's sort of true. I mean, if
it is true,
you need a united. And the thing is, they had a united fiscal policy, but it had no enforcement method.
Yes, but as Milton Friedman points out, as Milton Friedman points out, this isn't going to cause political union. It's going to cause political division. It's been done badly. It's been done ham-fistedly, and now there are literally major nations who want to get out of it.
It's because you're trying to actually get an agreement between God knows how many nations, none of whom can agree.
Yeah, I know. So it was a silly thing to try and do from the start, wasn't it? You know?
No. I mean, in principle, if you can actually get a unified currency, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but that's utopian nonsense, and we already know that it's the worst situation to try doing it. I mean, you've got all these diverse economies with different people who speak different languages and have different interests.
No. None of that. The only one that was relevant there is the economies going at different speeds.
No, not at all. I don't know. I'm just saying what Milton Friedman said. But this is his opinion, and I don't see why he's wrong. You know, all sorts of barriers come up into play when you've got cultural and linguistical differences. It becomes more difficult for the average person to do business, an entrepreneur to do business in a different country.
Actually, I think you'll find this is one of the reasons why English does so well. It's a very simple language to speak.
Absolutely, and it's so it's worldwide. So I'm not surprised that you get lots of foreign people speaking our language when they don't have any other lingua franca. But this is my point, though. This whole thing has been done ideologically. You know, they've been like, oh, we want to prevent war in Europe. We should have a united Europe. And it's like, okay, but they're asking people. No, but they're asking people to give up their sovereignty in the long term. That's the goal.
What sovereignty? Okay, come on. What sovereignty? No, I want to know what sovereignty have you given up for the EU?
Okay, 50% of the laws are made by people I didn't elect.
Bullshit. Right, name one of them.
Well, just because I can't name one doesn't mean it's not true.
Oh, come on, for fuck's sake.
But this is what they say.
The EU is imposing all their horrible burdens on me.
The European Commission's website.
Flame retardant label on my chair. Right? If that is the imposition, if that is the freedom that you've given up, it's bullshit.
Look, that is the very beginning. I mean, look, listen, right?
Yeah, right.
Listen to this, right? On April 24th, 2016, The Times reported that there has been plans drawn up for a European superstate. This has been drawn up, this call for the creation of a federal union of European states.
That was signed in by with the Maastricht and all that sort of shit.
Yes, exactly. This is all based on things. It was Lisbon, actually. That this is all. No, that was the army. So yeah, you're right, Maastricht. But the Lisbon Treaty has provisions for an army, and these people. I mean, it was signed in Rome by speakers of national parliaments from all over the continent, right?
And you're worried by a government that can't even actually put into place a fiscal policy at the same time as a common currency, and you're worried about them having an army that might actually, at some point in the future, for reasons that you can't understand, limit your freedom somehow.
Look, I can completely understand these reasons. I completely understand why that would end up happening. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's a potential outcome, and there's no need to have that as a potential outcome. It's silly.
Okay, well, if we're on this, then having the Queen is a liability because she is the commander-in-chief of the army.
Yeah, and I would love to see one of the monarchy try interfering with government. I would love to see what would happen because I think we would end the monarchy within minutes.
I thought you were all for removing the risk before, even no matter how small it was, you should remove the. Actually,
but I don't think that is a risk. Do you think that's a risk?
Actually, I think it's actually usually having the army sworn loyal to someone other than Parliament is actually a very important distinction of power.
Yes, it is.
As the case was, there was a coup in Spain.
Yeah.
And it was basically the army sworn loyal to the king, and after the coup, the king said, this is nothing. The army basically is carte blanche to restore democracy.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the king could, in principle, go the other way.
Yes, it's entirely possible.
Yeah. So I mean,
hey, I tell you what, when we get out of the EU, I'll help you campaign against the monarchy if you want.
I've got no interest in that.
Exactly. That's the thing.
All of this is
this is a distraction.
All of this is petty menial crap. It's like I was saying. It's a very expensive way of changing from military grey to ocean grey, pissing everyone off along the way, and not really changing anything.
Not really, because do you not think that more and more of our laws will become written by the European Commission if we become more and more federated?
Well, inevitably, yeah. But
exactly, inevitably. So you can complain about the fact that we've got hang on. You can complain about the fire retardant label now, but in 10 years' time, you might be complaining about tax hikes from people you didn't elect. Okay, this is the point. It's what can happen and what is likely to happen. And it is likely that more laws will come from a closely more integrated, federated Europe. And we didn't elect the people writing those laws.
These are criticisms you could have just as easily made against the UK government.
Yes, and we can make them if you like. But the point at hand is the Brexit. I mean, once we're out, hell, we can send politicians to the Parliament to make laws to do exactly those things. I'd probably support them, to be honest. But at the moment, we need to be able to know that in the future we have the ability to get politicians to do this. And if we join the Federated States of Europe, we know we can't.
Oh, you know that you have a vote in Europe, same as everyone else.
Yeah, but we don't vote for the people who make the laws. That's the difference. This is
Yeah, but
the
the
avenue
people
of power that's blocked off from the demos. We can send all
Right.
the MEPs there they want, and they can ask the commission and say, "Look, could you please write a law so we can audit you, or scale back the military, or do something?" And they can just say, "No."
And the UK Parliament doesn't need to hold this referendum at all. In fact,
It
can just say after the referendum,
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not binding. And you're
Yeah.
worried, and so I mean, every criticism that you're making about Europe, you could make about your own
Okay, but
government.
that's just too cocky. That doesn't mean that it's not true about Europe. It
Right,
means it's
so if
also
it's not a
true
problem
about
here-
Europe.
Right, so are you saying that you actually have a problem with democracy in the UK?
I'm saying that democracy in the UK is not perfect, but it is better than
It's not
democracy in Europe.
perfect anywhere.
Yes, I know, but it's even worse in Europe because literally we
That's it.
have no control over the lawmakers. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
but the law-
For
Look,
all of the
we-
problems
we-
of
we-
democracy in the UK,
we-
we at least have control
Yes.
of the lawmakers.
You send 99% more money to the UK lawmakers
Sure.
than to the EU lawmakers.
Now, yes, but like I said, as it becomes more federated, it's going to get more centralised. You know that. You know that's going to happen. You know it's going to happen.
Yeah, but
I mean,
this
they
is
have
because-
plans to
no,
do it.
but this is because laws accumulate. I mean,
Yes, I know.
no one ever bothers to revoke them. So
Yes.
you get all these stupid things like if a whale's head washes up on the beach, it becomes the property of the Queen.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So laws accumulate.
Yes, they do.
No one ever bothers to revoke them
Yes.
because.
But if
So,
you did have a
when
law
you
that you
say-
wanted
when you say-
revoked, what if you had a law that was really, really, really hindering millions of people and you wanted it revoked, but it was beneficial to the politicians, what would you do?
What you mean that there's actually a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Like we never get in Parliament or the House of Lords
And,
or
but what could we
anywhere
do?
in British
Oh,
politics.
no, we get them all the time. But what can we do?
Well, there's not really much you can do.
Of course there is.
The
Of
only
course
thing
there
that you
is.
can do is you can vote for a local an MP. That's
Exactly.
your only say.
And that's all I need. That's all I need. Because in
Yeah,
Europe,
and
you
that
can't
MP,
do that.
That MP can ignore your vote.
They could.
Right? I mean, have you ever watched Yes Minister?
Yeah, I love it.
Everything.
Humphrey is the
and
le- he's the best.
and he's sort of saying, I have to worry about the backbenchers, keeping the backbenchers happy. So, well, what about the electorate? Well, the electorate don't bother me. They can't vote against me till the next election. The backbenchers can vote against me tonight.
Yeah, but the people in Europe you will never vote against.
What?
The people in the European Commission you don't vote for. You can't vote against them. They make the laws.
Yeah, but they make such trivial, banal laws.
At the moment.
And they can't actually pass laws. They have to be
No,
approved.
that's true. They do
by
have to be approved.
The elected.
But imagine if they did get something passed. What happens if a 9/11 happens? There's a terrible terrorist attack. Boom. The Patriot Act is the prime example.
Yeah,
This stuff happens.
you're sort of saying, and you worry about senseless scaremongering.
No, how is that senseless scaremongering? We have examples in modern history of this sort of thing happening, and you end up with draconian
and
laws.
You could get the Queen sort of in a 9/11 type event, commanding the army to seize
could.
martial law and such like.
But I'm not suggesting martial law. I'm suggesting the passing of laws that A, are bad, and B, we can't get repealed. I mean, there is at least the avenue to get them repealed in this country if their will was there.
Essentially, your entire beef seems to be that the bureaucracy of the EU, the democratic process within the EU is somewhat different from the democratic process within England.
It's not that it's somewhat different, right? If it was more like Switzerland, I would actually prefer the EU, and I would be saying no, we definitely need to leave because we would have a more sort of direct democracy. Not that I'm advocating for a direct democracy, but you know.
Two wolves and one sheep voting over who to have for lunch.
Yeah, but at least they
It's
get a
democracy.
vote.
It's democracy.
Yeah, but you don't even get to vote for the wolf who just says, "Right, your lunch." This is the problem, man. There's this barrier between the people who are writing the laws and the people who are voting these
Right, and
people in.
the people who write the laws, there's one of them from each country, yeah?
Yeah.
And so you think there's going to be some great conspiracy between God knows how many are there
doesn't-
now? 30 people or something?
It doesn't. No, 28.
And they're all going to, and then the
But why
parliament's
does it
got
have to be a conspiracy?
and the parliament's got to ratify it. Well, how on earth else are you going to get them all to agree?
Well, there is a definitive zeitgeist within the European Parliament at the moment, and it is towards a federalized Europe with an army and borders, and to become a nation state. That's what they want. There's no reason to think you can't have another zeitgeist like that to, I don't know, eradicate migrants. You know, oh, Germany brings in 5 million migrants in 20 years' time, something like that. Right-wing governments pop up everywhere. They're all across the EU, all in, and so we might be the one left-wing people saying, okay, no, don't kill people.
Let's try something a little...
Look, that's not that unlikely, man. That's not that unlikely. We're seeing the steps to get there already happening.
And so what you're saying is there's going to be creeping instability across Europe that'll lead to a war or
entirely
something.
possible. Well, not a war, but it could lead to war crimes, sure. I mean, what do you think is going to happen to the average person when they find their government completely unresponsive? I mean, everyone always quotes Nigel Farage out of context where he's like, well, if you don't give them the process through the vote, then violence is inevitable. Because he's right. You know, that's true. That's not a threat. That's inevitable. When people don't have a franchise within the system, the only recourse to change the system is...
Yeah, the problem is that's actually been the mantra of the terrorists throughout civilization.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's because it's inevitable.
We vote and we don't get what we want, therefore we're going to start killing people.
Yes, that's why I want people to be more enfranchised in the democratic
was that the
process.
case with, say, the IRA?
I don't know, actually. I couldn't tell you.
The Irish Republic. Okay, you
I
must
don't
remember the Troubles.
I was quite young. That's the thing. So
Okay.
I know what went on, but I don't know necessarily the ins and outs of it. And to be honest with you, I haven't looked it up.
Yeah, okay.
So I couldn't tell. I mean, as far as I was aware with the Troubles, they just wanted Britain to cede control of Northern Ireland. I mean,
it's one of those difficult ones for democracy. Actually, they wanted a united Ireland. Do you even know the history of Northern Ireland? Why there are
in 1922 the Irish Free State voted for secession. The Northern Irish opted out, and they voted again. Was it in the 70s?
And then the origins of it is basically the English preemptively invaded Ireland, stopped the screw of the Spanish. That's why there's all the loyalists in the north.
Oh right, well yeah, a lot of them were Protestant
so
plantations.
It was basically they had to preemptively invade Ireland. And that's why there's this split between the Catholics and the Protestants. And then it comes, to the Troubles. Now, it turns out England had been pretty unpleasant to the Irish.
Of course.
In World War II, threatened to bomb them, that sort of thing. And it comes this interesting question for democracy. That if you take a look at the entire of the island, the majority wanted union. But those in the north didn't want union.
Yeah, they wanted to self-determine to stay with Britain.
Yeah. Who has... What does democracy say there?
Well, I mean, if there are a different population, as in Protestants or Catholics, I would be happy to accept their self-determination. What do you think?
I think it's a very difficult situation.
It is a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's actually a lot clearer with Europe. It's a very easy thing to see.
It's converse with Europe. If Britain does secede, right? One of the big deals.
Well, no, not with that.
No.
That's not what I meant. But okay, carry on.
One of the big deals with the ending the Troubles was the loss of the border between Northern and Southern Ireland. Right? There were no checkpoints.
Yeah. People
looking at passports, that sort of thing. It became an open border. Now the problem comes, of course, is if Britain exits. Now you've got actually a border between Europe and Ireland. Now you're going to put border posts up there again.
I don't know.
Now it turns out you're somewhat lucky in that you'll probably be saved by this, and it turns out Ireland's not Schengen either.
Oh, then it should be okay.
But yeah, right. But now, what about Scotland? Scotland will probably vote if England leaves.
Let them leave.
Scotland, yeah, right. And so that's the end of the United Kingdom.
It will be the end of the United Kingdom either way.
What?
They're going for a federal European superstate. It will be the end of the United Kingdom if we stay. They are saying it. That's what their proposals are for. It's either way, it's going to happen.
Well, yeah, but when you say the end of the United Kingdom, are you saying that we're not going to have Parliament anymore?
No, of course we'll still have Parliament.
So we'll still have the right to determine what happens in England?
Provincially.
So, yeah, provincially meaning within England, we'll have the ability to govern what happens.
No, not strictly. It'll be very much... Well, I mean, it'll probably be worse than in the United States.
We'll be allowed to do what we want as long as we put the flame retardant label on the chairs.
Yeah, well, we won't be able to set our own foreign policy, trade agreements. We won't... There will be overriding laws, whether we like them or not.
Well, there are now, and we've signed up to them. And the reason we signed up to them is because they were in our benefit. Right?
But are they in our benefit now?
The reason that we're in the Eurozone is because it actually benefits us in a way that leaving it... Sorry?
It did.
Yeah.
It used to benefit us. I don't think it benefits us now.
You don't think that we will actually... So you think leaving will actually make us better off?
Yeah, but you know that we are eventually going to have to join the Euro. We're eventually going to lose the sovereign entity that is the United Kingdom.
I think you'll find we're about as likely to join the euro as adopt the kilogram.
No, it's inevitable.
Not the kilogram, the kilometre.
Yeah, no, it's inevitable. We will eventually have to join the euro. Once we have lost our national sovereignty, we won't be able to stop them from doing it to us. They will want us in the euro. I mean, mate, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'll give you this thing.
How are they going to enforce it?
Well, presumably with the European army that they make.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't think that? So the way that we will adopt the euro will be at the barrel of a gun.
No, they'll do it through sanctions and just political pressure. But they'll be enough
what you
people
mean, normal political processes?
Yes, but we will find ourselves with less and less power and more things imposed on us until eventually we have lost our national sovereignty. The union that is the United Kingdom will just be dissolved.
You're worried about something that is operationally insignificant. It makes an insignificant amount of laws, and you're worried about this basically removing your free speech, your right to drive on the left, and all sorts of other crap. I mean,
I'm not bothered about which side of the road we drive on. I'm bothered about who we get to vote for, and we don't get to vote for the people who are going to make our laws. And they're going to make more and more of them until we are no longer a sovereign state.
Come on, this is a distinction without a difference. There is a European Parliament. You elect people to go there. Without their approval, no laws can pass.
Yeah.
You actually have currently a government that can ignore your referendum completely, and you don't actually see that as the end of democracy in Britain.
Do you think that the government are going to? Because I mean,
no!
Okay, hang on. Listen.
We're going to adopt the euro because of a
European
we
will eventually adopt the euro if we stay in Europe. It will happen. That's going to happen. We will eventually end up ceding our sovereignty to the European superstate they are creating. It's going to happen. Now, yeah, you're right. Technically, the Parliament could turn around and say, well, you voted, and you may have, say, 80% vote leave. So, no, we're not going to do it. But that's going to be a really big problem for them, and they're going to get voted out faster than fuck. However, if that was the European Parliament, we can't vote them out. You know? And this is the thing. Britain is on the losing end of most of these votes in the European Parliament.
Everyone is on the losing end of most votes. No, they're not.
I can give you the numbers if you want.
How many people actually voted for Cameron?
Oh, yeah.
About 30% tops.
That's not what I'm saying.
Lucky.
That's not what I'm saying.
That means that the English government that actually controls the majority of Parliament, that can pass whatever laws it wants, only had the votes.
Yes, a democratic mandate is done by majority. As in, if you've got 5 parties, and the highest one gets 35%, they have the largest percent, and they get the mandate. Yes, that's how a democracy works. And there are arguments for various other things.
You get a proportional representation, all sorts of other ways you can do it.
Yeah, there are other ways you can do it.
And one of the ways that you can do it is like it's set up in the European Union. where everyone
Yes,
sends
but
their commissioner, which is a fair way to do it.
Yes.
Do you have a problem with
Yeah, I
everyone
do have a
having their
problem with that,
commissioner?
right? I have a problem with that because different nation states have different interests. This is what I'm trying to say. Before 2004 to 2009, Britain was on the, say, winning side of about 80% of the votes that were passed in the European Parliament. Now we're about 60%, and it's been going down because they're voting against our interests. And we are getting the short end. We can't do anything about that. That's how the democracy is going to work. Is that, okay?
Right, but what do you expect from a democracy where you're 10% of the population?
Exactly, we shouldn't be in it.
Europe has 5 billion people in it, and you're 10% of
500 million.
Why? What? Sorry?
You said 5 billion, but yeah,
Sorry,
I know you mean. It's all right,
yeah.
it's all right, sorry.
That would be, that's everyone on Earth.
Then we definitely need less immigration.
Okay. And yeah, so is it 10%? Yeah, it's 10%.
Yeah. But that's the argument against federalisation. Yeah, but that's the argument against federalisation. It's not responsive to the will of the people.
Do you actually have any problem with the status quo as it is?
Yes.
No, the status quo, not your fears of what it could become.
Yeah, but the status quo
as it is. Do you have any problem if nothing changed from here? Or would you be happy with this level of integration in Europe?
On the assumption that nothing could change, I wouldn't be happy with it, but I probably wouldn't be agitating to leave it. That's on the. But even then, given the way the migrant crisis is going, I'm not even sure. I don't know what happens with the migrant crisis, so I don't know what's going to happen. It could get worse, it could get better. Who knows? But I wouldn't be happy with it because the problem
with the migrant crisis
is that we still don't elect the people who make the laws. That's my problem. Fundamental problem with the EU. If that wasn't the case, I would probably be okay with it.
The reason it was set up is because you have different problems in setting up a democracy, right? If you accept that there have to be, if you're going to have a common market, you have to have rules governing that. Yes.
Of course you do.
Right. So you do need some level of political integration.
Yes.
Right. So you don't have problems with that. Giving away your
honestly,
sovereign rights.
I don't really see the necessity for us to be in a common market when you have such high technology. This strikes me again. It strikes me as being archaic. I mean, people are always talking about, well, we can't set up our own trade deals. Well, that's actually not really a big deal.
The reason that you have things like this is so you don't have lead paint in kids' toys.
Yeah, no, you can regulate anything coming into your own market. I mean, if we left and we were our own market again, we could regulate
that. That we're talking about.
Yeah, and if we wanted to sell something to Europe, we would have to regulate our products sold there to their regulations. That's fine. That's what you do everywhere on Earth for every trading partner that's ever existed. So that's completely normal. But
so all these European regulations you would have to deal with whether you're in or out of Europe.
Yes, you would. Yes.
Yeah. So there's no benefit to leaving whatsoever on that front.
On that front, no, not really. Nothing really would change. But that's they would have to abide by our regulations. It's
well,
just...
I think you'll find that so this is the way they went with Switzerland. Is actually no, I forgot because Switzerland's Schengen. They're not EU,
Norway as well because they wanted to be able to have access to the common market freely.
Yeah, that's it, right? Yeah. So,
but that's a decision they got to make, and well, no, they
yeah,
made it.
But I mean,
no,
we're talking about democracy, and in that same democracy, the government can say, in fact, they don't even need this referendum.
Yeah,
they could actually turn around, and you don't have any problem with that sort of democracy. They could turn around and just sort of say,
well, if
we're going to stay. That's it.
So who's staying? Sorry.
The government could turn around and say...
Yeah, but the government of where, sorry? Or is it anywhere?
England.
Oh, England. Yeah. Right, yeah. No, I mean, I would have no problem if the EU was simply just a trading bloc, or a common market even, and the member states...
Which is mostly what it is, your fears of what it might become.
But it's not necessarily my fears, it's what they are saying they're going to do. These are the people in charge.
It's like... You're worried about spectres of what might be when you can see gargantuan problems why it won't be.
Yeah, but these are spectres of what will be. I mean, the people in charge are saying this is what they're going to do. So, I mean, if it was just random alt-right bloggers or something, I'd be like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
They don't have the power to do it.
Yeah, but they will.
They need the elected parliament to actually
and it will
ratify anything.
And it will. That's the point.
Well,
there is
actually,
a common will for this. It will happen.
What you mean, a common will by the elected parliament?
Yeah. Because you've got countries like Germany who
So
have decided their own national
against
sovereignty
democracy.
is the problem.
Your problem is against democracy, then?
No, my problem is that Europe has decided that national sovereignty is a bad idea, and it's actually not a bad idea.
Actually, I would say. What does sovereignty actually get you?
It gets you control of your own government.
What does patriotism get you?
We're not talking about patriotism. You can hate your own country as much as you want, but we're talking about your own individual rights here. I can't exercise my democratic right over Jean-Claude Juncker, because I don't have one. That's my problem. No one does.
You don't have. I mean, come on, you've got one vote out of 60 million people in England.
Yeah, but that's 60 million people who don't have a vote for Jean-Claude Juncker. That's the point. It's just because I'm only one person. That's millions of other people in the same boat.
You don't vote for who the head of the civil service is, and he controls 500,000 civil servants in England.
Yes, he does, but he doesn't set the policy. The people who set the policy are elected.
Come on, you've seen Yes Minister.
Yeah, but the point is that, look, it doesn't matter who writes it.
No. You're trying to put clear lines in there.
Yeah, but there is a clear line. There is a very clear line. The civil servants aren't the ones enforcing the laws, making the law the law. They're the ones writing it and then giving it to the politicians to propose. But we can do something about that. That's our sliver to intervene.
Who is the intellectual elite? Who are your... these are the rich overlords that you're worried about in Europe, are the exact same ones that we have in the civil service.
Yes, but we have some measure of control over them here.
You think that the politicians are some level of control?
We have some level of control, and yes,
absolutely.
Imagine if UKIP had run on a platform of, we're not even going to hold a referendum. You vote this in, we're just going to leave, and they won, a majority of the vote. Then we'd leave. Fuck the civil servants. They wouldn't have the power to say no.
Sorry?
The civil servants wouldn't be able to say no, would they?
The civil servants aren't employed by the government. They're employed by the Crown.
Yes, I know. But that's the point.
So you can't... I mean, this is one of the, separations of power, is that the government has no power over the civil servants.
Yes, but the civil servants aren't going to suddenly say that we're not going to enact the laws that have been mandated.
Yeah, they will enact the laws as they interpret the will of the ministers.
Yes.
And you have to also bear in mind that they're probably a hell of a lot smarter than the actual ministers.
Without a doubt. But that doesn't mean that we can't get things done. And if it's a problem, you know what? We can get people in there to fix it. We can get people in there who literally run on a platform of reform.
Every time you look at the UK government is with rose-coloured spectacles.
No, it's not. I don't think it's necessarily.
Every time you say I have a say in it, and every time you look at the EU, it's you don't, and they are almost identical.
Yeah, I know, but look, you don't seem to be understanding, or at least appreciating, just how important it is that the people you elect can make laws. That is just... I mean, it's weird how people seem to undervalue this, because this is how you control your government. And it's a tiny amount of control I as an individual have, but it's some control.
And it's even tinier when you actually factor in the fact that you only need... Christ, I don't know how much you would need for a majority in the UK.
It would have to be something that was a very, very popular idea. I agree with you. But the thing is, it can't happen in Europe.
In actuality, the number of times that you've ever had a popular movement that's actually directly led to a law being enacted, this is not my chair, as it were, but I doubt it's ever had. You come back to Magna Carta or some shit like that.
Probably Thatcher and closing down the mines and stuff like this.
But that wasn't Thatcher was.
She won the vote. She won the vote because of the grip of the unions on the country. There was a popular will to get these unions broken.
Yeah, but it wasn't so much a vote for Thatcher. It was a vote not. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with democracy: is you rarely vote for who you want. You vote for who you least.
Yeah, a lot of the time you're voting against someone else. I agree with you. But the point is, a lot of the time you're voting for some specific thing to happen, and that you can't do that in Europe. You can't do that. That's the problem. The best you can do with Europe is it's a losing proposition. The best you can do is hold it off but you can only hold it off for so long.
Looking at absolutely minuscule differences here between. I mean, look, we've just been through that maybe once or twice in the last God knows how many years that actually something popular has directly led to something in Parliament. Well, that's probably the way it is with the. I mean, I don't think it's ever happened in the EU. The EU is so.
And I'm just going to turn the light on. It's not getting dark.
John.
Sorry. Hang on.
I mean, then for time. What time did we start?
Sorry about that.
So we've been doing this for about 2 hours.
Yeah. We can wrap it up whenever you're
Yeah.
ready.
So I mean, I think,
but I understand.
I think we've beaten this one to death.
Yeah, I think so.
Of the political aspect.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, I understand how it looks like a small deal. But the thing is, there are plenty of examples in history where someone has done something that really looks like a small deal on the surface, but it turns out it's the butterfly flapping its wings and causing a hurricane somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, this is why you generally design governments to be inefficient and bureaucratic.
Yeah, but it would also be useful to design governments with measures of restraint that you could potentially, if you had to, organise and vote against. You know, you could take some kind of civil action.
In fact, let's try this slightly different tact. Has the EU ever done anything competent?
You said that about any government, couldn't you, though?
Yeah, I know, right, but if it's never done anything competent...
I guess it would depend on your standard of competence.
Getting an army and sort of imposing things is...
Okay, well, have governments ever done anything terrible?
What? Which governments?
Any government.
Well, ours started a war against Iraq based on some bullshit.
Absolutely.
That was bullshit.
And you know,
it did so with a democratic elected.
It did.
Government.
It absolutely did. And I'm not saying democracy is flawless.
No effect on it.
I'm not saying democracy is flawless, but what I'm saying is governments have the power to do tremendous evils, and if you don't have some kind of democratic control over them, if the will of the people is against the will of the government, what can you do?
Yeah, but this is generic criticism.
Exactly, it is. And the European Union is not set up for us to control it.
It's true if the EU government, and unless the status quo, you've already said, is acceptable.
Yeah, but it's not going to remain the status quo. It's going to continue federalising and centralising. That's what they want. They are creating a European superstate.
You've already said that these are people who have never done anything efficient.
Yeah, okay, so but it's going to be incompetent.
Fucking history.
Yes, exactly, and it's going to be incompetent, and the more incompetent it is, the more draconian it has to become to enforce its own rules.
It's like our inefficient government here has actually become more draconian as it's become more inept.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, I mean, we got what we got: Boris Johnson and
is he
Cameron
actually in the government?
No, he's the mayor of London. I don't know if he still is. Oh, well, whatever. But I mean, that's the thing. If you wanted home rule for London, would you have a problem with that?
You know what? It probably would benefit the rest of the United Kingdom if we seceded from London.
Actually, no.
I don't know.
London brings in it's some crazy amount of money. It's 1/6 of the economy or something.
Yeah, it is a huge.
And
it's the city
it basically subsidises all the poor people in the country from that wealth.
The problem with London is it gets a disproportionate amount of investment.
Sorry?
The problem with London is it gets a disproportionate amount of investment because the decisions are made there. And so this is why you get people in the north who get pissed off. That's why the Scots hate it. You know, they hate Westminster for that. You know, and so it's sure there are other problems and we should sort them out. But the thing is, this is a problem we can see coming on the horizon. It's not something that's unlikely. They are clamouring at the door to have a European superstate with an army, a treasury, and national policies.
Okay, let's go for your fear number one: the unification of currency. Let's just say there is a unified currency, a unified fiscal policy. What's your problem with that?
Well, it's not my problem. It's what the economists say about it, and they say that it's a bad idea. They say it's been badly implemented.
No, it's a bad idea. Actually, the way it was implemented, in principle, what's the problem?
Yeah, but
in
principle, it might be a good idea, but in reality, it's a bad idea, and it's been done ham-fistedly. And Greece had a hell of a time I mean, they literally browbeat Greece. Yanis Varoufakis had to resign. You know, he literally had to resign, and they loathe him because he was taking a hardline stance on saying, no, we're not taking your bullshit. And Juncker, the current president of the Commission, said, look, there can be no democratic vote against the EU, the treaties. If you leave the euro, you leave Europe. You know, that was the reason they didn't.
Is this the German guy?
No, he's Luxembourg.
So I mean, you get a whole spectrum of these people. You know, if you leave Europe, you leave for good. I mean, and you can sort of see there's an element of sort of sense to it. It's basically the core of all justice is an element of reciprocation.
Yeah, I agree.
That if you basically screw Europe over.
I agree. I mean, if we leave, it should be permanent. Yeah.
And the problem with that is that basically Europe's 10 times the size of the UK.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful about pissing people off who have more ability, right? In other words, if you were to take a look at the trade, Europe can take the loss in trade. It's doubtful whether UK can.
I tell you what, I wouldn't want to take a loss in trade like that if I were Europe. I mean, you know,
but it's 10
they
times
have got
the
employment.
size.
Yeah, but that's the problem. 10 times the hungry mouths to feed when you've got 50% youth unemployment in Greece and Spain and Portugal.
It's linear, right? If you're actually trading equal amounts,
we have a deficit,
and they're 10 times the size. That means that it's 1/10 of the impact on their economy and 10 times the impact on yours.
Yeah, but 1/10 of the impact on their economy is much more people impacted.
No. It's the same amount of money spread over a lot more people. It's less.
Yeah, but no.
It's disproportionately less. The bigger entity has more capability to take loss than the smaller one. I mean, it's just
absolutely. But the bigger entity at the moment isn't in a position where it can just sit there taking losses because it's crippled. It's crippled its growth with an artificially imposed universal currency. So absolutely not.
We just looked at the German growth figures.
Yeah, but that's Germany, and they're propping up Europe. Italy's negative.
And we looked at Poland, and Poland's doing 3 times.
Yeah, but that's because they're taking all of Germany's money.
No, it's not. It's because they're growing. The reason they're growing is because they're poor. We covered this earlier.
Yeah, we did, but that's because Germany is propping up. And the same with the rest of Eastern Europe that's in the fucking EU. It's being propped up with our money. It's being propped up with the rich countries' money.
I'm just looking at the numbers now. They're all over the place. Some of them, Portugal's in the shitter.
Yep.
Italy is in the shitter.
This is exactly why
everyone else is not doing too bad.
That's true, but this is exactly why Milton Friedman was like, look, this is a bad idea, because what they should be able to do is devalue their own currency and just have exchange rates. That's what they should do and it was Mervyn King was the one who said that, the ex-governor of the Bank of England. He thinks this is deliberately done by design.
If we go now on the advice of the economists, is there anyone who actually says that Brexit is a good thing for England?
Well, no, they say that there's going to be a financial dip, and I agree, that will happen. You know, say it lasts 10 years, that will happen. But then we won't be part of a federal European superstate that isn't growing.
Yeah, you'll be on the sidelines of a federal superstate with an army that is going to have the army anyway.
That's all right. So, we're in NATO. They're not going to attack us.
So are they.
Exactly, they're not going to attack us. We'll be okay.
Well, in which case, where's your fears about this great European superstate that's going to conquer England?
Because if we're part of it and we are actually revolting from the government, that's not an invasion. That's a revolution, or at best, a civil war. And that's not the sort of thing that another foreign power can just turn around and say, you're not allowed to do that, because everyone does that. If a part of your nation tries to secede, you suppress it. That's all. Everyone does this. You know, the United States certainly wouldn't have a leg to stand on, would they? So, you know, it's not the same thing. It becomes diplomatically a lot easier to send in this army you have. Whereas if you're invading another sovereign nation that's part of an alliance group with you, this is the whole purpose of the Treaty of Westphalia. You know, we need to maintain the nation state as the highest sovereign entity, and we need to maintain our sovereignty. Otherwise, we are just a province, and they can do with us as they will.
So, I mean, the way I've always looked at it, and this is maybe... I've moved around. I've not lived in England for a long time now.
You're not missing anything.
Well, I mean, this is sort of almost exactly where I was going. this idea that one country is better than another or has got better ways of doing things is mostly bollocks. They all have good elements, and they all have bad elements. All the first world countries are more or less a wash, right? I could live in any one of them, and the idea that I would feel any need to fight for one of them over another. I mean, would you fight for England?
If we were being invaded, yeah. I mean, what you can't just let your country be invaded and do nothing.
So
I'm not saying I'd be a very good fighter.
Are you actually fighting for England, or are you fighting for yourself?
Well, technically, I'm fighting for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, surely everyone is.
Yeah. Well, so yeah. It's one of those things. Would you go and fight a war for England?
I don't think I would personally, but then I don't think I'm really the sort they'd want on the front line anyway.
It's hardly a ringing endorsement of Great Britain, is it? I mean,
to be fair, I wouldn't do it if I was living anywhere else.
I live here, I pay my taxes, but the rest is just a roof, and it could as well be anywhere.
Well,
I mean,
if you
were living in South France, would you really?
Oh, I'd capitulate to the Russians in an instant.
in South France.
Yeah.
No, I mean, come on. Actually, France it may be a bad example, but France is not a bad place.
No, it's not a bad place, and the French people are very nice.
Yeah,
I can't believe I just said that.
France probably has more problems in Europe than anyone else, but it's still, as a country, it's not that bad.
No, it's not. And the thing is, I'm not saying that these things are going to happen tomorrow, as it is at the moment.
You're smoking. I'm going to get a beer.
Yeah, go for it, man. And I am smoking a lot tonight. I don't normally smoke this much, but
here's the drugs, man.
Yeah. It's just tobacco. It's not like anything mental, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to hold a conversation. But yeah, it's not that there's. I like Europe a lot. I mean, I go there quite often. It's just in times of instability, things are going to get worse, and I want to have some measure of control at the people at the top, even if that's a fraction, even if it's only a fraction, because then it's not just me, then it's millions of people.
This is fighting for Pyrrhic victories at that point. Unless you've got most of the people who go for this Brexit, there's a lot of chest beating about keeping Britain British.
Yeah, no,
this is sort of mindless nationalism, and if you've moved around a bit.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
It's all much of a muchness.
I mean, I lived out in Germany for 8 years, so
it's not bad. You speak any German?
9. We were on English bases.
Almost as good as mine.
Yeah. I know that Zug means train, and Ein Bier bitter.
And Gleis, platform.
Is that? Oh yeah,
Gleis is platform.
I haven't lived there for about 20 years.
You pick up this shit when you're just going through the stations,
Yeah.
They have a lot of towns called Ausgang.
Yeah. What does that mean? Exit, just in case anyone's wondering. Yeah.
Something like that. I forget.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my mum actually asked that question once. Sorry, Mum, I didn't mean to make you sound silly. But yeah, it's not that I have a problem with the continent. It's just and I'm not saying it's necessarily likely, but if things start going badly... Do you have a
problem, right? So you've travelled in Europe quite a lot.
Sorry, say again.
You've travelled in Europe.
Yeah, reasonably, yeah. Reasonably.
Euro is pretty useful in Europe.
It is.
It's remarkably convenient. In fact, it's a pain in the arse to actually have to... there's relatively few countries, and it's a pain in the arse to...
I'm not going to lie, right?
There are legitimate advantages to having the common currency.
Absolutely.
And Britain being on the outside is a pain in the ass.
I'm not saying there aren't legitimate advantages. And I'm actually... This weekend I went to Zagreb. And so I went to the Bureau de Change and got 200 euros, please. They don't use euros. They use kunas.
Yeah, God.
So I was there with... I was just like, oh.
And right, so this was the common... I remember Europe... before the euro, and you would get francs, Deutschmarks,
lira,
and a load of people in Germany, they had real worries about the euro, and in fact some of them actually came to pass. I forget what it was that was it that they would hold their value or something. But at the end of the day, everyone seems to be fairly happy with it. I mean, the real problem is the lack of financial policy.
Yeah, it's the lack of flexibility it gives the different economies, though. That's, I think, the major problem. Because this is what Mervyn King was saying. He was saying, look, these countries on the periphery have no way of pulling themselves out of austerity. That's the problem. Because normally they would just default back to the national currencies, assuming they were already off them, and then they'd devalue them, and then they would be able to garner foreign investment to build up their economy to a reasonable standard and pull themselves out. But they can't do that if they're being controlled centrally under the euro. And so it really is a bit of a cripple.
That's the real problem, is there is no central control. They're all meant to...
Well, there's the European Central Bank,
but it has no enforcement method.
Well, no, but it's politically unlikely.
Some guidelines, and they don't do it.
Honestly,
they rarely hit the targets.
I think if anyone was going to ever default on their debt, it would have been Greece, and they didn't. So I get the feeling they were playing a really intense game of chicken, which is why Yanis Varoufakis. I read his blog, and he was just like,
doing now.
Yeah, but we're in a much stronger position. Europe probably needs us more.
Yeah, but the reason that Greece really pissed everyone else off is because they were playing a high-risk game of chicken.
Yeah.
That's not far off what the UK's doing.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a completely different situation, because Greece, unbelievable amount of debt for their GDP, and they have no prospects. There's no way they're going to make any money. And so they were playing chicken with the fact that they simply weren't going to pay. And that basically got Yanis Varoufakis fired. It got the Greeks having austerity anyway, even though they voted overwhelmingly against it. And
in principle, England can do all of these things.
Yeah, but England isn't...
There are no enforcement mechanisms. You've just sort of said under a treaty that you would pay the money.
Yeah, but we still want to have a good credit rating.
Money, Europe has no method of enforcing anything. Right, it's all essentially done on a gentleman's agreement, and you've got the... Well, it's not a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah, it's more politics.
They're meant to be legally binding, treaties. Yeah. It's just there is no enforcement on them.
Yeah, but eventually there will be enforcement of them.
Bollocks.
There will. That's all they talk about, I swear. Honestly, I've got...
No. There are treaties like this all over the world, and the deal is never... you do this or we'll come and invade your country.
No, but the deal is you do this or you get your credit rating downgraded and no one else will trade.
That's more like it. Yeah, right. So there are, if you want to be a financial player, you've got to be respectable, right?
Yeah, but we're not going to break... We're not breaking any treaties. I mean, there are provisions for people to
but in principle, we're not legally bound to do any. Well, we don't.
No, but it's the cause and effect that we're interested in. We're not just going to start breaking treaties with people and defaulting on debt, because that would screw us. That would be a silly thing.
Even though we have the freedom to do it.
Yeah, but I mean, anyone could technically default. Any sovereign country could default on debt. It would just be fucking silly.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't think the sky's going to collapse. It's not. It's not going to rain fire over Britain if we leave. We will be okay. And another thing that pisses me off is people talk about trade agreements.
There's going to be such a shit show.
Yeah, it will. It will be difficult.
It'll be everyone who wants to. Right. The thing is that it only really screws over the UK. Everyone else in the world is fine. The EU is mostly business.
I don't know.
No. Think about it, right? The EU is still the EU trading bloc. It's just got 10% smaller, right? Everyone knows how to do business there. Everyone doesn't know how to do business. All of a sudden, it's different. It's going to be you don't know what the rules are going to be to deal with the UK. It's going to be British safety standards or whatever, right? If you want to actually sell goods to the UK, what are you going to have to do?
Well, we'll have our own regulations, obviously.
Right, exactly. And no one knows what they're going to be, and that
actually
screws
no,
over...
hang on. It's not that bad. It's not like you think, actually, because in a lot of cases, we are actually the world leaders in some of these regulations, for in the pharmaceutical industry. We are the ones who are setting the standards that everyone else is following along with, because they're good standards. And it's the same with things like, workers' rights and women's pay. I've heard, oh my God, we're going to have none of these. Are you kidding? We invented these before we joined the EU, before the EU existed. We had these
right.
things,
So this is what I was saying. It's changing the colour from ocean grey to military grey.
Yeah, but no, just on that thing, though.
All that
just on that thing.
Is everyone knew what the rules were before, and they don't know what they are now. And that means that you're making everyone's life, everyone who has to deal with the UK, you've made their life a gargantuan and needless pain in the arse.
Not in every case. I mean,
not in every case.
In fact,
but you can see that there is no there is no rosy side for anyone who deals with Britain here. What is the
Okay,
upside?
hang
You
on,
can see that there is a problem. Can you see that there is a benefit?
The upside is that the UK government could create trade deals with places. I mean, we don't have a trade deal with India or Australia or anything.
Don't worry about the trade
so
deals.
We could do these things.
People knowing the rules. What rules are you going to deal with?
Well, basically the same ones, because we invented a lot of the rules. You know, that's the thing. Why would we necessarily change these things? No, yep. In this regard, in this one regard, it is. But it's also guaranteeing the sovereignty of our country, and that's safeguarding our democracy and our individual rights, man.
So,
you know, it's a point of principle. You know, it's just
so for
a
you,
good idea.
It's just that one little difference between the Commission proposes the rules and Parliament has to ratify them, whereas with our much smaller Parliament, which you can do it with smaller countries, anyone can propose the laws.
Even then,
even though it's the civil servants, the lawyers, and the people with the best.
Yeah, of course, there's the bureaucracy involved.
That's the ones who write and draft them.
Yeah, of course. But the thing is, democracy works better on smaller scales. That's just the nature of democracy. The smaller the democracy, the more responsive it is to the citizens. And that's why Switzerland's in such a good position, and we're in a less good position, you know?
The reason Switzerland does well is because it has a rather fickle... the Swiss model works well because of what the country... I forget what its lead export is, but I think it's...
probably financial services.
Yeah, but their manufacturing is the exotic watches or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like looking at Qatar and sort of saying, why don't we follow their business model?
No, I'm not suggesting we follow their business model.
You know, we can't all get rich off oil or
No. I'm not suggesting we adopt the Swiss business model. I'm just saying it's any democracy is more responsive when it's a smaller block that you're having as a democracy.
This is true.
And so creating a giant continent-wide one is not going to be responsive to the needs of the people as much as it could do if it was more localized.
Which is why almost all of the large bureaucracies, say for instance the United States, the federal government, they deal with things that are almost universally agreed on. Mm-hmm. Everyone agrees with them, right?
Gay marriage. Disagreement on that?
And well, okay, right, but with that,
it's just one example. That's just
but you for the large part, I mean, even a gay marriage, it's
a silly issue.
Right.
Why shouldn't it be in? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the federal laws would be. You know, they govern things like things that cross the borders of states.
Yeah.
So
there are certainly advantages to harmonising these things.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the US
that's
government...
essentially what the federal government does. Now, is there a problem with doing that in Europe?
Because again, the thing is, the average American voter gets to decide on the people who are making these laws. In Europe, they don't.
Actually, I think you'll find that the reason the Senate has some of the lousiest approval ratings...
Yes, I am aware of the problems in the US political system, and they
exactly, right. So basically, if
you
would try now to actually get the United States to agree on how they were going to do the government, you would probably have all of the same problems that you have with Europe. I doubt whether you would even be able to actually get an agreement, because it's like you were saying.
True, it's just the impetus required, like with the Patriot Act. It can, as Dan Collins says, turn on a dime when the need is there. You know, when the will is there, it can happen. But you know, like you say, most of the time it spends its time deadlocked and totally unliked. But it can happen.
And if you were to actually argue, right? So it turns out the entire EU budget is about 100 billion. Give or take. Britain's about 10% contributor to it. Most of that comes straight back to England, of course, or UK.
Yeah.
When you get into things like the military-industrial complex, they're about 10 times bigger. They're about $1 trillion. Now, at that point, you do get into the positive, the significant positive feedback mechanisms that you can actually skim off one part in 1,000 of that. And it's still $1 billion, and use that to lobby the 500 politicians to actually give you more money. You alluded to these positive feedback mechanisms earlier. The thing is, those positive feedback mechanisms are determinant on the size of the market, the size of the industry you're looking at, and how many politicians you've got, and how easy it is to get influence with those. Well, I mean, with the EU, God, I mean, how would you get influence with the EU Parliament? I mean, it's almost impossible.
That's one of the problems with it, I think.
No. That's one of its strengths, is that you can't actually get influence with it, because how would you do it? I mean,
I must have missed the part though. Who are we talking about trying to get influence?
With the EU Parliament.
Yeah, but who is trying to get the influence?
If you wanted to buy influence, right? So
right.
You can lobby whatever senators, yeah.
Yeah, but I think I think that Europe has the same sort of problem with corporate money that all the other democracies do. I would have to check, but I think
it's basically a problem with large governments. But
yeah,
all the same, America actually does very well out of it.
Well, there's
it does. I mean,
the thing is, the problem is when you
money, but it delivers.
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem is when you look at it as like America, like the economy in total, it probably does. But then when you're like a farmer in Nebraska or something who's got flaming tap water because some company up the river has bought the rights to be able to flush their shit down the river, then you find, it depends who you're talking about.
So you're saying that we need some sort of federal government that would actually stop that happening in Europe?
No, I think actually we need national government.
Yeah, I know, but you can't do that. I mean, you might actually remember this, the acid rain. Do you remember acid rain?
I remember it was a hot topic when I was a kid.
So basically what it was is we were burning loads of coal, and coal had sulphur in it.
Yeah.
And it used to get blown over to Germany, where it would fall out and kill all the forests.
Mm.
Are we responsible for that?
Well, we are, aren't we?
Yeah, I know, but yeah, I mean, you can have your gentlemen's agreements about this.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, and don't get me wrong, environmental concerns are an issue. But I don't think that... I mean, are we really going to be in a position where we say, look, Germany, I know we're polluting you, but fuck yourselves? Yeah, I mean, are we really going to do that? Is that actually something?
Yeah, I know, but are we really going to get to this sort of European super state where there's going to be the army that runs some horrible dictatorship?
I don't know necessarily. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to be a dictatorship, but I mean, we are definitely heading towards a federal European super state. The United Kingdom will cease to exist. We'll end up on the euro. We'll end up.
It's going to, like you were saying, it's going to cease to exist damn sight quicker with Brexit than without it.
Possibly, but at least the people in the states that listen.
The people aren't the people.
I'm the people.
I know, but and the government can completely ignore you. They already have a mandate to do whatever the hell they want.
They can, but they won't. Whereas the people in the EU actually do ignore us. That's the point. I mean, have you listened to Juncker? Any of the things he says? It's crazy. He's literally anti-democracy. He thinks it's just an obstacle. And it's just like, wow, these people are just not...
I mean, we sort of covered this...
Yeah, but they seem to be setting up Plato's Republic. They seem to think that they deserve to be like a philosopher class who don't really have to listen to the plebs and who can operate with impunity. And that's basically how they set the system.
Careful with the anti-intellectualism now.
I'm not anti-intellectual at all. What I'm saying is, I don't think that there should be a bunch of people who only pay, 21% tax or something? They've got really low tax rate for people earning over 100k a year.
Yeah, but come on, what was it? You can't point to enduringly here, given what do they call the expenses? You remember the expenses scandal? Where people like Cameron were getting
that's been reformed now.
$200,000 to get a duck pond.
Yeah, but that's been reformed because
I know, because it became a fucking public scandal.
Yes, exactly.
And it had been going on. I mean, basically, what you're saying is politicians tend to grease each other's backs.
No. But the thing
they've always done that. This isn't something
of course they have. Of course they have. Politicians are still going to be corrupt. But the point is, the reason that our politicians were responsive to it, or so responsive to it, is because we could have voted them out. If they didn't say, "Oh, actually, God, we didn't know about this,"
no.
We could have voted against
if you're talking about UK democracy, what is it? Probably about 50% of the seats are what you would call safe.
Yes, I know.
Right, so you have no say. Your vote counts for nothing.
At least we don't have the rotten boroughs anymore.
Sorry.
At least we don't have the rotten
Yeah,
boroughs
right.
anymore.
So actually,
Yeah.
let's briefly explain for those who don't know how the UK electoral system works. Is it's sort of cut up into little boundaries. Those usually either vote red or blue, like they do in America, and a lot of those have either mostly red or mostly blue. So if you want your politicians to be elected, you basically put them in those safe states or safe whatever boroughs or whatever, and yeah, the democracy in England is frequently a huge swing can be done on a few percent of the vote. I mean, there's all sorts of problems with democracy in England, and then you look at other systems like proportional representation, which have their moments.
Yeah, but they're also vulnerable to things like gerrymandering and whatnot, and it is complicated.
The real problem with things like proportional representation, which you have in the EU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's very diluted, isn't it? I mean,
but it's still more than we have in England.
Well, it is, but and hey, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't have any kind of reform here. I'm more than happy to say we need
and how are you going to reform it? Oh, you've got to get the politicians to vote for it.
No, we don't. We can literally vote for someone who their mandate is to do this. It's going to like Donald Trump. I mean, there's no way
you can't. Most of the boroughs are either red or blue, so you don't have any real control over it whatsoever. I mean, otherwise we would have had things like proportional representation introduced, at least in part by now. Right? The reason that you don't have it is because none of the politicians want it, because the status quo works to their favour.
It does. But the thing is, it's honestly, Donald Trump has been a great example of this, how you just need the will. That's it. You just need the demos to understand it as an option. Hey, and they have been doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think Donald Trump is necessarily the best thing to happen, but
what is Donald Trump's key?
Build a wall.
No. He's not cut from politician fabric.
No, he's not. Which is why he's popular.
Yeah, I know. And it's an irony that, you take a look at our democracy, and every single person there is cut from political fabric. And it's one of these great ironies that people want to abolish the House of Lords or the hereditary peers because they're hereditary. It's you get Lord Rothborough of Peebles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's what's the appropriate term? It's almost a method for corruption. You can promise someone a peerage.
Right. But this is the thing. Those are the appointed peers. Most people don't have too much problem with the appointed peers. They have a problem with the hereditary peers.
Yeah.
Which was ironically.
I don't like the appointed peers, actually.
No. The hereditary peers were ironically almost the only time that ordinary people entered government, because they went with a bloodline. So, bloodlines didn't necessarily always retain the manner and the posh accent and all that sort of crap. So it's almost the only time that you got ordinary people in politics was in the House of Lords. And it's ironic that the people who went to democracy, these people didn't get any votes.
The House of Lords.
I mean, it's a bit of an irony that they were almost the only normal people in the entire system.
It is entirely. But the thing is, a lot of people really rag on the House of Lords, and it's not as awful an institution as you would think. I mean, they're very much like the European Parliament in a way. They don't propose laws, but they can block them.
Stop them, yes.
Yeah, but that's the point. They can't change the country in the way they want, but they can act as a safety valve if something crazy comes up because of some sort of right-wing demagoguery or something. They can at least take some action, but they can also, they can also sort of ease the pressure by making a big deal out of it. It becomes a focus of public debate.
Well, this is almost always the way that you set up any government is.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a law to get through, it's got to go through all these loopholes, or not. It's got to go through all these hoops. It's got to go through all these hoops.
Yeah,
and the whole thing's basically set up to stop anyone getting too much power.
Yes, and this is why people they go on about House of Lords, but it's not as dangerous as they think. It might actually act as a really good safety valve. And there is also the argument against elected politicians. And I know that sounds crazy, But one of the problems that they have in America that one of my favourite podcasters, Dan Carlin, talks about all the time is they spend a disproportionate amount of their time lobbying for money. And they're so worried about like the next election, you know, and it distracts a lot of their time. And they don't think long term. You know, it tends to make them think short term. And when you've got a body like the House of Lords, it's not a bad idea. I mean, you know, it's not the worst idea in the world. Don't get me wrong, it's not a brilliant idea necessarily, but it definitely has its uses. You know.
Yeah.
But right, okay. I guess we've gone for quite a while, so I guess
I was about to say, it looks like it's got dark where you are.
Yeah, it is actually getting dark.
It never gets dark where I am.
Yeah, my lights aren't very good. But for anyone interested, we had about 6,500 people at maximum watching us there, and we were the most watched stream on YouTube. So that's nice. Yeah, by a couple of thousand people actually. So that was cool. But yeah, right. So I guess we'll let the people decide who was in the right on this one. But I've enjoyed the.
Right. So let me.
Oh, go on. One more thing.
Yeah. So all of my videos on this got absolutely panned. Why do you think that was?
I think that's because you look at it from top down.
So you don't think it was any of the arguments?
I don't think the arguments were as concrete as they could be. Otherwise, they would have persuaded me.
What was the problem with the arguments?
Okay, let me think.
So let me give you a review of the arguments.
Yeah. I did watch them today actually, but yeah, give me a refresh.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did we go in? And this is the long history of Europe.
Right. Okay. With that one, the problem is the situation's changed. You know, it
wasn't
necessarily a great idea at the time.
Scrolling through.
Right. Okay.
To the important bits. Oh yeah, that's right. There was the bit about the democracy. We covered that one about the democracy and the Queen being the head of the army.
Yeah, but again, I don't think that's a great argument because it's
actually it's actually much more important than you think. That actually having the Queen
important.
It's the separation of power.
Yeah, it's actually to our advantage.
But that's the irony.
Yeah, I know.
People thought that this was some sort of silly argument. It's like, no, if you know history. I mean, there are times when that actually works to your advantage.
Yeah.
And
while you're thinking, I mean, this is what I was going to say to people. Actually, Britain's in this really unique historical position where we have a non-political institution that the army pledges its loyalty to, which means that you can't have a prime minister marching on Parliament and installing himself as a dictator.
Yeah, right.
Because the army, they're not going to follow them. You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's very interesting. And it's an interesting safety net.
So you take a look, and it was the American army is pledged to defend the Constitution, although they obey the orders of the President.
Yeah.
So it's one of those weird ones that, what the hell's defending a piece of paper?
It's the idea. And the problem with ideas as well is that they only work as long as the majority agrees with it. As soon as the majority disagrees with it, they go out the window.
And it's also an interesting one with the actual history of the United States, that their actual constitution has this rather interesting loophole that you were sort of talking about, that if the government gets corrupt, you have the legal power to overthrow it. The question is, what does that actually look like?
I dread to think.
Does the Texas militia actually are they fighting against a corrupt government? Do they have a real argument?
I mean,
the government is corrupt? Is the killing of politicians therefore justified? Who judges?
Well, to be fair, violence has always been a part of the American political system. I mean, plenty of American politicians have been shot, or attempted to be assassinated, all through the history. Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, JFK. Didn't someone try to shoot Reagan at some point?
Yeah, well, Reagan got shot.
He actually got shot. Yeah.
He got shot very near a very good hospital.
Yeah, and I always found that really weird. I mean, it sounds really counterintuitive on the face of it, doesn't it? Because you think, well, in 4 years' time, you can just vote him out. Whereas with a monarch, you can't get rid of them, and they're for life. So you would think that European monarchs would get assassinated a lot more frequently than American presidents. But it's actually not. European monarchs have got a surprising survivability.
I remember they did try to kill... No, they did kill Louis Mountbatten, didn't they?
Yeah, but it's not very many of them. It's not very many of them. For the number of European monarchs, there are surprisingly few assassinations. And it's a funny old world.
No, they tended to cut each other's heads off.
Yeah, that's probably why the public never had to cut them off for them, probably.
Actually, yeah, it's... yeah, you get all the... No, come on, the history of the monarchy in England is... It's cutting the heads off your rivals. It's Game of Thrones stuff.
Yes, it is, absolutely. But that's not very many assassinations. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, it's not an assassination if you declare them a traitor
exactly.
and their head off.
And it's not just random nuts running up and shanking them or shooting them or something like that. That's the thing. You know, whereas in America, you get people who do that with alarming regularity, actually. This is why I'm like, look, if you look at like just the historical trend, I think Trump's probably... I don't think he's actually going to win the election. I think Hillary's going to win it, unfortunately. But if Trump were looking to storm it, then there's a good chance that someone would try and kill him. A damn good chance.
I don't know about that.
You think Hillary's going to get it? You think Trump's going to get it, sorry?
So, this is the thing, you know, I've known folks in America who have been confident that, yeah, I hope Trump wins the nomination, because then whoever stands against him is guaranteed to win.
Wow.
And I have to remind them they elected Bush twice.
And not only that, the person standing against him is going to be Hillary, and Hillary is Hillary.
Kerry's, I mean, it's essentially she is 100% political cloth. In many ways, arguably, you're a perfect democratic politician. The one that you were advocating for, one who doesn't really have any will of her own, but does what the people want.
I don't think she does what the people want. That's the thing. Yeah. Have you looked at leaked emails?
She says whatever she needs to say.
Yeah, but
which is the perfect democratic politician.
No. That's
I am their leader. I must follow the people.
She's paying lip service. She's not doing what the people want. She's just telling them what they want to hear. She's going to carry on being corrupt and being Machiavellian behind the scenes. I mean, read her emails. They're fucking like... I mean, Machiavelli would be like, this is exactly how you're supposed to do it. You know,
She's not that Machiavellian if she doesn't treat writing emails as public.
I don't think she ever thought they were going to get out. You know, that's why she had a private.
So she's not that Machiavellian then.
I think maybe she's not as bright as she thinks she is. But
she's actually pretty smart.
She is smart.
Don't. I mean, this is.
She's smart, but she's old. That's the thing. I think that she doesn't understand technology as well as someone younger would.
That's fine, but Hillary is actually. If you're looking for someone competent, Hillary's not that bad. In terms of what I trust her, she's a politician.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Hillary's so establishment. That's the thing, and the American establishment it's not representing the people anymore, which is why you have Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump doing so well. You know, they're not part of the fabric of the establishment, and that's what the establishment is scared of them for. And it's been amazing to see the conservative commentators trying to scramble for purchase and trying to understand the new worldview. They've lost control of the Republican Party. And now they're the fringe elements on the outside. And I love watching their podcasts.
They still control the majority of the purse strings.
Yeah, but the public will is not with them, and they don't know how to deal with it.
Purse strings.
Yeah, but I think that can only last for so long. I think that it's a new paradigm.
So who do you think will be corrupted first? Yeah, the politicians will... Trump will bend to their political... Yeah, will do what's necessary, or...
I think Trump's actually been really consistent on a few points. Even back in the 80s, when he was like, on Oprah or on some of the other talk shows, he's saying the same things he's saying now. He's just saying them in a lot more calm manner, and no one's calling him a racist.
You must admit that the guy's... if you wanted someone competent, empowered, Trump is not the man to go for.
Trump will probably try and do what he says he's going to do. That's what I think will happen. I mean, that's not necessarily to say he's competent. That's just to say I think he does have that. There are some consistent things that he will keep pressing for,
like
building a wall, better trade deals with China and Mexico.
Yeah, but come on, building a wall is a straw dream. What's the point of building a 3,000-mile wall across a desert for Mexicans who have long since lost interest in coming to America?
I didn't say it was necessarily a good idea. I just think that's what he's going to do.
So you actually think he's going to try and build a wall?
Yeah, I think he will. I think he will try and do it because he said he will, and it's something that the people will support him for.
Yeah, but Obama said he was going to close Gitmo.
Yeah, but Obama turned out to be a corporate candidate very quickly, didn't he? He turned out to be. It was amazing rhetoric, but it turned out that he wasn't. You know.
But in many ways, a perfect president. He had a nice smile. He didn't screw up much.
He's a perfect front.
He looked good on camera.
Yeah.
And he didn't make any crap decisions.
No, and he was a great speaker, and he
he didn't start many wars.
No, that's true, and you know he was a great corporate frontman. You know, he really was, but he wasn't. He didn't do what the people wanted.
Sorry.
He didn't do what he was elected to do. He didn't bring change.
No, who does?
Well, I think Donald Trump will, because he's not a politician. He's already a billionaire. Why does he need to be bought off?
Well, I have my doubts whether he's that rich. He started rich. It's arguable whether he's actually ever really... You know, this idea that he's some great successful businessman is bollocks.
Hey,
right?
I think he is genuinely a billionaire. I think I mean, how much of a billionaire he is up for debate, absolutely. But I think it is true that he is still a billionaire. And Trump... People always complain about, he's so egotistical. And it's like, yes, he is. And he wants the love of the people to feed his ego. And he's got lots of money, so they're not going to just be able to throw money at him to make him change his mind, like with Obama. They're not going to be able to do it.
You don't think that Obama is already rich?
I don't think he was already that rich.
I mean, this is the thing. You have to bear in mind that
he will be.
When people get this rich, they're not motivated by what normal people would, I mean, you can always get a little bit more, but once you get into this league of richness, once you get beyond, I don't know, 3 million or something, 10 million maybe, there is no sensible way you can spend the money in your lifetime.
No, but for a lot of people, it's just the numbers. It's just to say they have it.
Exactly right. So they're not operating really for the money. They're operating because they want an extra zero after their name. Yeah,
and a lot of the time they're operating to join like an exclusive club. You know, there's. I'm not saying conspiracy. I'm saying like a circle of people who, I mean, Trump's been part of it, but I don't think he's going to be part of it after this election campaign. I think he's going full on demagogue, to be honest.
What, Obama?
No, Trump.
Yeah, I mean, Trump strikes me as one of those guys who, if he can boast that he's going to have the zero after his name, he would die a happy man. Whereas Obama, I don't see like that. Obama does actually sort of care about stuff.
If he did, why didn't he close Gitmo? Why didn't he rein in the drone strikes?
Because he had other... I mean, you know what politics is like. You have multiple constraints on you.
You do.
And the drone strikes, I mean, Christ, we spent quite a long time bitching out sort of, how should we say, undesirable elements.
Yeah.
It's being a little more proactive,
Yeah, but I mean, what change did he really bring? I mean, I guess Obamacare was his big thing, and that's what.
Well, and also, you have to bear in mind that the American system. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I don't mind, if Trump gets elected, is the whole American system is designed, kind of like the European Union, to be mostly gridlocked. Right, and so the president has really quite limited power. He can propose things, sign things, but he doesn't. He's not a dictator.
Well, the use of executive orders has been a bit disturbing, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, but if you like, they go back to Bush, don't they?
Yeah, I know, but that's the point.
I'm a bit fuzzy on that, but maybe not.
Oh well, Obama's been using them quite frequently, as I understand it. And I don't think it pleases the rest of the political system. But like you said, it's literally gridlocked. It's got Congress and the Senate have terrible approval ratings. So what choice does he have? You can't really crucify him on that. If he wants to get anything done, what else? How else is he going to do it?
In many ways, this is what I was saying earlier. I mean, it's one of the things. In fact, it's actually a line from a Yes Minister. Politics is about surviving till Thursday afternoon. Governments surviving till the next century or something.
Yeah.
You have much longer goals in government. You want stability. You want there to be a country left for your kids. Right? With politics, it's you're worried. You're worried about things that change from day to day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand you. But Right. Okay. Well, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Well, it's been a good chat. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. I hope.
Yeah, I'll be interested to. It's one of those things with a lot of the Brexit stuff. I don't think
it's divisive. It's very divisive. But the thing is...
no, it's divisive, and for that very reason, this sort of thing is going to have a limited effect. People will see what they want to see.
Yeah, I agree. And
for a lot of people,
I think,
it's for the middle ground people, I guess, that we're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think on the plus side, once this has been and gone, people aren't necessarily going to hate you for the position you took on it.
I think there's you take a look at the Quebec referendum, which was it 95 or something.
Oh, I don't know.
Quebec basically wanted the same thing. We want home rule, yada yada yada, split up the country, sort of secession type thing, and very close. And the repercussions from that have been going ever since.
Well, I was really talking about
I don't see, and I can tell you, you have elements like this in countries all throughout Europe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
They're all minority. Well, Christ, you get communists and all sorts, right? Yeah. And that I think is one of the worries, that if Britain goes out, that'll energize all of these sorts of folks, and
it's possible.
The Europe falling to pieces is in no one's benefit. If you're actually on the sidelines of Europe, having Europe fall to pieces is not in your best interest.
Yeah, but the thing is, becoming a federal state of Europe, a federal province of Europe,
lesser of two evils.
Well, is it the lesser though? I mean,
it is.
But this is the thing. It's a long-term evil versus a short-term evil, so I don't even know which the lesser is. I mean,
right.
it might not be bad in our lifetimes, but in our grandchildren's
You're worried something that might happen in...
Yeah, but it's the same... It's something that might happen to us.
Give me a time scale.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, like you say, politics can change very quickly. It could change in 10 years.
You will never be able to get a European army very quickly.
No, not necessarily quickly, but we could be looking like 10, 15 years. It doesn't have to be that long.
Right, so I mean, if you're like, now is not really the time, now the short term is really what you should be worried about.
Well, I don't know. The thing is, this is a historical event. I mean, this is going to be something that has macro historical effects. So I really think we should be thinking about the long term. And, I'm not normally one for self-sacrifice or anything, but it might really be worth taking a bit of pain now. So come 20 years' time, we can look at the continent and go, well, thank God we're not in their position.
But it won't help you. I mean, if the continent goes down, you're going down with it.
Well, this thing, I don't think we will. I mean, our trade's going lower and lower with it every passing year, and
so you really think isolationism is the way to go?
No, I'm saying the rest of the world is the way to go. The political will in Europe is killing Europe.
Proximity is actually a rather important element.
It used to be, but it's not now with the internet. It used to be. That's the thing. It's not now. That we're in a different world now, and this is the thing. I mean, I don't even know if representative democracy is appropriate for the modern world. We could have direct democracy via the internet these days.
Direct democracy, right? We were talking earlier about you want stability.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we should necessarily become a direct democracy, but maybe party democracy is what I'm talking about then. Maybe we could be voting for individual representatives to positions in government. So you could vote for a particular Chancellor of the Exchequer, or a particular Prime Minister, or a particular Foreign Minister, rather than a party that determined that for you.
I think this... look, how many people do you think who are voting in the UK referendum have a detailed knowledge of the actual issues that they're voting on?
Very few.
Right. So this is...
the eternal problem of democracy.
Well, no. I mean, a society has got much more complex. Asking people their opinion on something that they don't really understand, what's the point?
Yeah, it's pointless.
But so, I mean, this is a sort of real concern, and if you take a look at modern politics in places like America, you get this problem that the longer the message, the more accurate the message,
and the less people hear it.
The less people will listen, the less people will understand, which is why most American elections are won on 4-word or less slogans.
Yeah, it's true.
Make America great again, hope, change, whatever, right? and so looked at like this, is there actual real wisdom in asking everyone to decide on an issue they don't understand? Or most of them don't understand the lion's share.
This was literally the Athenian aristocrats' argument against the democracy originally in place. I mean, that was literally what they were saying. And they weren't necessarily wrong. I mean, there were plenty of things that the Athenian democracy did that were fucking stupid. And
weren't they the ones who, they just had the straight up down vote that we go loot and pillage the next town?
That's exactly what it is.
Rape and pillage, but we had the democratic vote, so it's okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. And they ended up fucking themselves by stupid decisions made in the heat of the moment. But
stability and it's
But the thing is, a long slide into controlling oligarchies ends up in revolutions. So it's both ways.
The way that I see it is usually as long as people are happy and well fed, then revolutions rarely happen.
That's true.
In society,
but 50% youth unemployment in Greece, high in Spain, Portugal, Italy, getting worse. We're not. I don't think we're in the secure position that we were 10 years ago. I don't think we can sit there and be. We can't be complacent and say, well, everyone's fine because we're fine right now. It's like, well, if you look at the trends...
If you're playing the long game, there are two things that you need to worry about. The first is changing rain patterns with climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Where there is water, you can grow food. If you change the water flow, you change where you can grow the food. If it's one of those crazy things people have forgotten because there's always food in the supermarkets.
Oh, yeah.
That you back in the day, if the crops failed, you starved.
Yep. People are spoiled.
And the second one is the end of the antibiotic age, which is
that's definitely for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about. A lot of things are becoming very resistant to the way we kill them.
So with bacteria, there are only about 4 pathways that you can actually kill bacterial cells without killing you. And the thing is that we've used these antibiotics so often now that genetically they've actually developed a resistance to this. They've developed pathways that actually mean that you can't kill them by these 4 routes. And the problem is that those genes are now pervasive in the environment. And the problem is that once they're out there, you can't get rid of them. It's irreversible. And once you actually go back to the pre-antibiotic age, basically any minor operation can be life-ending, right? Because the way that you do it at the moment, you cut people open, you do what you want, you sew them back up again, give them some antibiotics to stop any infection, you're done. If you don't have the antibiotics, you basically run the risk of dying every time you break the skin.
Mm.
So,
and the thing is as well, if you look at it from a historical perspective, I mean, we've been in this sort of golden era for 100 years.
Yeah,
this could be a flash in the pan.
It's unprecedented in Europe. We've had the longest period with unlimited food, unlimited peace, freedom,
and there is every chance that in 500 years' time they'll look back and find it hard to believe how good our civilization was. So. Technology can go backwards, and often did throughout history. So,
the loss of information is not one that bothers me because we can store that on things like this.
Yeah, but you need to know people. If something happened, like I don't know, an EMP pulse from the sun or something, and people lost the understanding of even what that was, it could happen.
Well, yeah, I mean that's actually this is virtually all of the advances that we're looking at are of course made possible by scientific discovery, which is actually one of the very good things that the EU does.
Yes, I'm more than happy for us to continue funding EU science as much as we do, regardless of whether we're in or not, because it's a great idea.
Actually, I think you'll find that currently the UK receives about twice as much from Europe as it puts in for science.
Yeah.
So UK science will be. I mean, I know people on these research councils that are shitting themselves. it's not just a minor issue. This is what do you do when half of your budget evaporates like that?
Yeah, you get a lot less beam time.
And it's also the this is actually money going to UK. This is not sort of funding stuff on the continent. But the people like the Lords have sort of said that it's unlikely that shortfall is going to be met by the UK government. Yeah, it's basically it's going to screw over UK science.
Well, I hope that we can find some kind of amicable compromise with Europe. The problem, I think, as well with that is they're going to be vindictive.
Vindictive, reciprocative, I think was the word you're looking for.
Look, I'm not trying to be vindictive to Europe, and if they want to turn around and say, you know what, Britain, you've got a good point. We need to start electing the people who make the laws. We're going to reform, and you can stay in. I'd say, brilliant, do it. Do it.
Yeah, but the thing is that you're not actually doing that. You're doing a straight up, we're just quitting. You're not asking for reform. What efforts have you made to try and reform this?
I personally have made no efforts, because I think that I've seen people I've seen MEPs saying that there's nothing we can do. There's no avenue.
Right, the system is so bureaucratic and ineffective because you're trying to get the agreement of 20 odd countries that it's almost impossible to do anything.
So it's not really a very good system, is it?
No, but that's actually not really that bad of a thing because it's stable. It doesn't really do anything.
But I think it's a slow decline.
It's when you actually look at what does it do? So it's about a third of its budget goes on the common agricultural policy. I forget what fraction goes on administration. But it does put an awful lot of money. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that of all the things you can do, if you're taking money from all over Europe and sort of redistributing it, you can put a lot of money into the science. So you,
I understand the worry with UK science, and I would be more than happy to lobby for extra money for science if we left. As much as we can get in that, I would be completely behind that because
realistically, that's just going to happen. Right, arguing for more money for science is an absolute lost cause, right? Because you can't get into a 4-word punchline, right?
I think I can think of something.
Yeah, I know, but it's not going to be catchy enough for anyone to save our scientists or something.
Maybe that's not the most unlikely thing I've heard.
Now the problem with scientists is if the shelf stackers go on strike tomorrow, you notice immediately, right? They are directly necessary for the day-to-day running
like the doctors in
London.
London,
right? If your scientists go on strike, no one notices for 50 years, right? And then only because other people are starting to make advances and you're not. All of a sudden, you're the only one who doesn't have touchscreen phones or something. And even at that, the technology moves around.
The commodification of it isn't so much the problem, I don't think. I mean, people in Africa have got touchscreen phones. So,
it was just the example.
But, so, we'll end it there then. I think, I hope a lot of people got a lot out of this, because I think it was a good conversation either way.
I understand what your concerns are, but I mean, I
understand your concerns as well. It's not, and I'm not saying they're not valid. And if my concerns, if I didn't think of the sort of macro historical effect of this, and if I was looking at it more top down rather than bottom up, I'd probably be in the same position you are. But I
look at it from what will happen in 5 years after we leave, and in 5 years after we leave, you may well say, well, at least we don't have a European army, but England will be in a sorry state compared to what it would be otherwise.
But in 20 years' time, it could be in a hell of a much better state than what France and Germany are going to be in.
Right. So, but the bottom line is if it does leave, the United Kingdom's gone within, what do you reckon, 5 years?
Yeah, but if it stays, the United Kingdom's gone within 20 years. So it's
right.
gone
So
either way.
First things first, okay?
Yeah.
And when you say it's gone, it's not gone in the sense that it doesn't have the House of Parliament or anything. It still makes all of its own rules and all that sort of thing. It's just it doesn't control the things like the fabric labels on the
I guess we'll see.
on the rugs and whatever.
I guess we'll see. But anyway, man, thanks for coming on. It's been a good chat. And thanks to everyone for watching.